would like to ask the committee to consider moving one of our action items along with discussion up immediately following our consent agenda. Yeah, it's number 11.3.
I'll make a motion that we move action item 11.3 to fall immediately after item 3.4.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We have some folks here that have some distance to travel, and I don't want to keep them here too late. So, all right. Next item on the agenda is to consider and vote on consent agenda items. Is there anybody who would like to pull from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. All right. We are going to, Becky, we're going to talk about the survey. Yes.
I'm going to recuse myself from some here and sit in the audience and not be part of the conversation on the vote, okay?
This particular item, we're going to consider and vote on re-administering a survey, a Rhode Island student survey that had been administered a few weeks back. And I think there was some issue that some parents had with the items in the survey. So what happened is we actually completed it, Bob?
Oh, we did, yeah. The survey was completed, it was sent in, we contacted URI, we asked them to get rid of all the information on the survey. They did, get rid of all that stuff, so it's like it didn't.
It's like it didn't exist, okay. Why don't I allow you, I know we as a school committee had approved this going back in December. I went back and read the survey, and I don't recall actually having looked at it back in December. I know that in getting it, we got it on the 2nd. It was the same day that we had our meeting. I can see how some parents might be concerned with what is contained within there. So, Becky, I don't know how you want to proceed. If you just want to speak to it.
Sure, I can speak from here.
Yeah, that's fine.
A little awkward in the back of my head. Okay, so just by way of a little historical reference. Back in the summer, I contacted Superintendent Crowley. She and I had a conversation about the administration of the Rhode Island Student Survey, which is one of the pieces of our grant. It's a grant requirement for our funding. She and I had a long conversation. Mr. Arruda was CC'd on some of those emails. And so that setup was in the summer, last summer, with the plan that when the survey was released to us, when we had a copy, she and I would have a conversation about it, and that we would be planning to administer that with school committee approval sometime, and at that point the time frame was sort of wide, sometime between February and the end of April. Those conversations continued through the fall when we finally got a copy, when I finally got a copy of the survey to be able to share. I shared it with Superintendent Crowley and Mr. Arruda. That was what was attached to your packet, your backup for that meeting when it was discussed and when the vote was taken. Unfortunately, I didn't have any kind of way to give you a preview. I don't know what the timing is usually of getting that backup information, but in any case, the survey questions were available to you. As you know, that it was approved at that meeting. And then subsequent to the approval of the survey, I'm going to say maybe 3 or 4 weeks prior to the administration, I received and forwarded to the school a protocol to follow for the administration of the survey. One of the key factors in the protocol for administration has to do with parent permission. So the way that that's handled is it's passive permission. So parents are given the information about the survey, that it's coming up, what the date is, and the opportunity to opt out. So if they're fine with their student taking the survey, they really don't have to do anything. If they choose to have their student not take it, then they sign a permission slip saying, you know, my child opts out, and please, and the information is in there. The student will be given another activity while their peers are taking the survey. Unfortunately, there was a glitch in the administration of the survey, and that passive permission slip did not go out. And that is very unfortunate. And it didn't really come to light until parents said, hey, we didn't know anything about this, and then it was made clear that the school did not send it out. They responded very quickly and very professionally to say, yes, we made the error in not sending it out, and the request was made to the state for those surveys to be taken out of the data pool, and they were limited to reading. So that was the one issue. Parents weren't given the opportunity to opt their student out. And then there were questions about, concerns about the questions that were actually asked. And I have a colleague here who can better explain some of the nature of those questions should you have specific questions. Linda Barovia works for Department of Behavioral Health and is the state level grant manager for the Partnership for Success grant. So she could help with some of the specifics. The request is for just the 8th grade for this year to have the opportunity to retake that survey. Now, keeping in mind that none of the survey results in the past were kept, they've been deleted. So this would be their opportunity to take the survey, same survey as before. Parents would be duly notified and have the option to opt out. So that's the request as it stands.
Okay. Yeah, and I think if we had administered the opt-out, or sent the opt-out format out, that may have alleviated some of the concerns that we had.
Absolutely. Yes, and that is why that protocol is there. It's for parents to be able to have control over that decision. They can opt out. The other piece, just for full disclosure, that was a concern. The protocol that was sent had a very specific script to follow, most especially regarding the need for students to make a password. The password could have been anything that they chose, Mickey Mouse. It could have been anything. They didn't have to remember the password, and they were never going to have to do it again. The password was not connected to the child. It was simply a way to get onto the computer system to sort of open up, like those things where, to prove you're not a robot,
Okay.
just to get on there. When it came time to do that, I'm sure the script was originally read, and then it went a little off script when some of the kids were saying, well, what should I use for my password? Can I use this? And so one of the administrators just said, oh, you can use your first initial and last name, which was, I wouldn't say it was inappropriate. I don't mean to throw anybody under the bus. It was inappropriate. No names, no initials or anything should have been ever connected to the survey. In reality, they weren't. Perhaps if you have that cybersecurity skill of, the forensic skills to connect things, it could have theoretically been connected to a student. And that was also a concern, a legitimate concern that parents had about their students' first initial, last name being connected to a specific survey. Again, a very legitimate reason why those survey results were never looked at or whatever. They clicked delete, and that was that. So again, the script that's provided, the protocol that's provided, the students are required to type. It could be random letters. It doesn't have to be numbers, just to get to open the system. I'm very technologically unsophisticated, so it's probably not exactly the right way to explain it, but in order to get the survey to pop up on your screen, you have to type something in the password field. Could be anything. That was my concern.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Could they have just, the teacher or whoever's administering this, just have everyone put in 1111, and would that have worked just as easily so that all the kids and nobody had to worry about that?
As far as I know, I don't think it had, do you know otherwise?
It might have had to be unique, but it didn't have to be in any way, shape, or form anything that was identifiable.
But I'm just saying where the kids were saying, whoa, what password? You know, put in 1, 2, 3, 4, wrong, you know.
I think, again, I wasn't there, but I have worked with enough 7th and 8th graders to know. Sometimes you say, you know, just any word, just type anything you want, just type any, and they still question you. So sometimes you give them oh, just do this, and they just do that. Well, unfortunately, this time, when you just type in your last name or whatever, without thinking, it was really the wrong thing. But I do think that was an error that was based probably just in trying to get the kids to move forward, because the password should have just been, you know, a 3-second thing. So I think that's probably how. I'm
just trying to make it easier
yeah.
for the future, you know, just making something very random like, you know.
Could have
4
been a
numbers.
random number. But as Linda said, I don't know whether it has to be unique. I don't know if they all type in the same sequence of numbers or letters. I don't know if it works. I don't know that, to be honest.
May I ask one other question? I realize this is for 8th graders and it's supposed to be more mature. But in re-looking at the question 52 and 53, I could see parents being upset with some of the questions within those two. I'm not there yet, but I understand when I hear some complaints about those 2 questions. Use the following traces the next group of questions. My parents notice when I'm doing a good job. Almost looks like you're reflecting on the parent. Parents tend to get a little bit upset when you think they're being criticized. I'm just asking, is that has to be in? Can those 2 be blank? Just
Do you want to field some of the
Sure.
questions about questions?
Yeah, so I'm Linda Barovier. I work in the Department of Behavioral Health Care, Developmental Disabilities, and Hospitals. So just to give you a quick overview, this survey is being administered in all the other sites that have the Partnership for Success, other federally funded initiatives like the Partnership for Success. This is what's called a risk and prevalence survey. It's based on nationally validated surveys. It's been looked at various levels at the state, regionally with technical assistance providers, and federally. And this really gets at a number of different things we need to know about whether we're doing good work in the community to promote positive behavioral health with adolescents and young adults. And so it asks a series of questions about how often people might have engaged in certain behaviors. It also asks questions about what are known as risk or protective factors, and these are risk or protective factors that are associated with substance use, also youth depression, and even potential suicide risk. In that constellation of risk or protective factors, there is a set that gets at sort of parental monitoring, parental communication skills, and so parents who may use certain kinds of techniques or discuss drugs and alcohol and depression with their children frequently can be a very protective factor, as well as perhaps giving us ideas of things that parents need to continue to work hard to raise their children under very trying and difficult circumstances. So the things that are asked here are asked for a very specific reason. It's because that set of question gets a series of communication techniques, messages that parents give about disapproving, the ways they talk to their children and promote good academic achievement, good problem-solving skills, and things of that nature. It's really a constellation of 5 to 6 risk or protective factors that are being queried here. One is some of the family dynamics and parental management practices and family communication techniques. Others are the individual youth perception of wrongfulness, of using substances or risk or harm coming using those substances. Additionally, it looks at norms in the community overall, is there a perception of the community perceives some of those behaviors as inappropriate for youth? And then just some other things about academic achievement. That's also pretty well linked with a lot of the behavioral health issues. So just about as a student, how well are you doing? Does this mean maybe as a community you do more to provide supports for those students who are more challenged in academic settings, that they have good outcomes? So while it looks like there are a lot of questions, they are really kind of clustered around some really core things that we need to know to promote positive behavioral health in our communities, schools, and in our families. It just helps us to be better equipped to know what we're doing well and want to continue to do well. And if there are things that somehow Rebecca and the coalition can leverage resources to help people do better, that's part of what this is all about. That's why it's so important to us to get the data and to prove that the things that we're funding are working and helping the community that they're intended to help.
Let me just lead me to one last question, which I agree with you. I think this is very important. Do the parents ever get the information as here at Wilbur School, this is what, parents are doing a great job here, or the community, or these are the concerns we might have in our school?
So this data would be available back to Rebecca and the Friendship Coalition, to the school if they want it. We report it only in aggregate, so you'll never know how an individual student or class.
But what about a community?
We can certainly feed it back to the community. We'll have access to the data, of course, only after we administer it. But we want people to use this for planning. This is the whole reason why why we do this and why we ask these questions that feel to some folks kind of intrusive. And I understand I'm a parent too.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think the one thing that I would add, thinking through my lens as a parent, is that none of these questions are fault finding. I mean, it's not to look for, gosh, where are we falling down in the job here? It's really to look at where can we best put our resources. I mean, because we know the story here in Compton. We know that we have a tremendous number of protective factors. So it's kind of looking at the big picture to know where's the best place to put our resources for the best outcomes for our kids, especially where we're talking about 7th and 8th graders who are, very quickly heading off to high school. We make sure that they are armed with whatever social emotional tools we can give them, knowing that we're a school and not a service organization, so to speak. But what tools can we make sure that they're armed with for the next phase? And some of those questions help to, kind of drill down a little deeper than what we would normally be able to get at.
Dr. Powell, do you see an issue with us administering this, given if we go out and ask the parents?
Well, I think that one of the other things you didn't raise is, that we discovered when we did it, was that when kids asked the question, they were forced to answer. They couldn't opt out of that. And when we contacted URI, they said, "Oh, that's not supposed to work that way." So even if we had administered, even if we had gotten the permission in the way that we should have gotten the permission, and that had all been done, we still had some issues with the directions that happened with the kids, so that they, that they were identifying themselves. That was going to be a problem. And then the next issue was going to be that they were going through it and they couldn't skip a question. And when we brought that up to URI, they said, "Oh, we didn't know that was happening. That's not supposed to happen." So even if all the other things had gone well, we still had an issue that was going to happen.
Absolutely.
And fortunately, URI was very cooperative with us, and they put, I'm going to say, put the genie back in the bottle. But, I just started to hear, because of the minutes after, but shortly after that survey was done, from parents who were concerned.
Absolutely.
And they had very legitimate issues. So that's why we wanted to dump that survey and we set the clock. I think that if parents want to sign off on having their kids take a survey and they know basically what the content is without knowing the specific questions, and they want their kids to participate in that, and you're telling me that they can skip a question.
They absolutely can. Here's the problem being on the front end. We were one of the first places to administer, and we had like the perfect storm. There were errors in the administration part, and then there were glitches, the technology piece, and that skip pattern was one of the reasons we opted to do an online survey rather than the paper pencil survey, because the paper pencil doesn't skip you. I mean, it'll tell you, go to question such and such, or you can skip any question you don't want to answer. So paper and pencil, they would have had that luxury. Unfortunately, whatever technological piece that would have given them the opportunity to skip a question they did not want to answer wasn't functioning. So that's the explanation that Dr. Power is giving, is that the kids are told right up front, any question that you don't want to answer, you can just skip to the next one. And very unfortunate, the program that they were using wasn't skipping them forward, so they, in order to proceed with all of the survey, they had to
Allow a non-applicable or some sort of answer like that basically skips it?
I don't think it was functioning that way at the time.
Is it functioning now?
Yes.
And the youth can stop the survey at any time they want to. They don't have to complete it. If at any point they decide they don't want to do it, they can stop answering questions and close down the program, which is fine. That works too.
That's just not how it was done. Because I know that I was sent home with, my two oldest both took it, and they both came home with some real their concerns, and I hadn't even had concerns with it at that point. And when I heard their reaction to it, I was taken aback by it too.
I'm fairly certain the Proctor guy said you are allowed as a student to stop at any time.
What were their concerns?
My boys' concerns were that they didn't feel as though it was anybody's business what happens in our house. They were a little bit offended that it was asking, do we argue, do we not argue, how does that make you feel? They both felt like they were forced to take it. My oldest sat for a while not putting in passwords, refusing, and then was made to take it. So he felt taken aback right from the beginning. And my 7th grader, he left the test feeling like he had betrayed his parents. And my oldest felt like he had answered questions that he didn't understand what the question was. So I think that the questions for them were also a little bit of a concern, not just how it was done, but some of the questions were not anything that they were ready or prepared to be answering.
So again, they're allowed to stop at any time they want to.
Right, but they weren't. And I think that if I were to come home today and say, well, we're going to take that again, they're going to have problems with it.
They should, as a parent, you should opt out.
Yeah.
Is this the one you did over a survey that is used in Massachusetts?
Yes, there are a number of similar questions. And the youth behavior survey is also done in Rhode Island schools, but there is a random sample. The questions actually came from the library. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Hi, Rebecca. Just listen to everything here. I know it's unfortunate that this happened. You know, I'm a big supporter of surveys, and we can't get enough information
I know that.
for our community and for our kids. And it's unfortunate that it happened, that we were one of the first to take it. The school dropped the ball. You guys had some issues on your end. I think there was 34 districts that took this, if I'm correct. Were there any other issues in any other school districts but this one?
Other districts, of course, had questions as well. And there were some technological glitches for the early adopter communities. But nobody else has at this point declined to participate.
No one else has declined. And I just want to make it clear before we take a vote here that the Partnership for Success grant, and the amount of it is now, how much is it?
Over five years, $285,000.
So $285,000 that you do great work, and I don't think we've ever had a grant like this in the county before. And you should be commended for honoring this. From what I understand is if we don't retake this, that funding, that money may be in jeopardy. Is that correct?
It's a contractual obligation that at the time that the municipality signed the contract, it was in the scope of work, so.
Okay, so I think it's very important that this committee understand that and the great work that you're doing, and the $280,000 we have to do more good work with is not in jeopardy in any way, and that we vote to retake this test or this survey, just like 34 other districts have done. And I thank you for coming here tonight.
that $280,000, is that divided equally among the districts?
No, that's for Little Compton.
That's just Little Compton, excellent, thank you.
And there are a number of strategies and programs that are implemented in this school that potentially are in jeopardy. We can't make an exception for Little Compton and say, it's fine that you don't do this and require it of every other community who's funded it. It's just not fair to anybody.
I think that if we administer this, the way that it's supposed to have been done from the beginning in terms of getting permission, I think that's a big piece.
It's
that we
huge.
missed.
It's
So,
huge.
That makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
So, with that,
I just had one clarification of the prevention coalitions across the state. So in other municipalities, are they a part of the school more formally? Because in Little Compton, it's independent.
For every coalition across the state, it's a little bit different than their neighbor. So I can tell you, for example, in Tiverton, the coalition and the school are integrally related. My office in Tiverton is in the Tiverton High School. I would say Tiverton is maybe on the far end of the spectrum in terms of the interrelationship between the school and the coalition. I would say Little Compton, probably the relationship between the school and the coalition, probably in the center of the spectrum. There are some who are much more integrated, and there are some who are tremendously not integrated. And then there are some coalitions across the state where they feel like they have to beg for the school door to be open, or to have a conversation with the superintendent, or to have a conversation with the principal. It's a heavy lift for them. So, like I said, the spectrum is, no involvement with the school and heavy involvement with the school. There's everything in the middle. I would say over recent years, where there has been considerable grant money opportunities available to coalitions, sometimes that money opens the door a little bit, because now the coalition has something tangible to offer and something to bring to the table and something to say, we're not just asking for your support, or we're not asking you to do something, we're offering to help make this come to fruition. So in Little Compton, over the years, there has been cooperation. We never had money. There was nothing, aside from my physical work with the school and bringing programs in that we could, we didn't have anything to offer until this grant came around for us, an opportunity to support, for example, Mr. Markov's position here. We support financially, but also support it with resources and, time and conversation, etc. So that's one example. Mr. Markov is partially supported by the grant. So I don't know if that answers your question, Margaret, but there's a spectrum, and in Little Compton will probably be in the middle.
That's great. And again, I appreciate the good work of Prevention Coalition, but as a parent, I was thinking, does the school committee have a policy on allowing outside organizations to come into the school to survey our children during school time using school resources and giving teachers as proctors, and that takes away from learning time? Like, I understood this was like an hour.
Yeah.
Or are you just considering it sort of on an ad hoc basis? But I thought, oh my gosh, this could be a slippery slope. You could have other people knocking at the door.
Absolutely.
I want to collect data on your students.
And I think to kind of help with that, put that in context, there was a very defined process of getting this to the point where it was ready to bring forth to the superintendent. And we also have that funky situation of having started this with one superintendent, and now we've got someone else picking up the pieces, so to speak. The survey was, it was crosswalked with multiple different surveys, and it was ultimately approved by the Rhode Island Department of Education. It would be my guess that we wouldn't have been able to bring it forth to the school administration and the superintendent, the school administration and the school committee without having Ryan picked it. You just, to my knowledge, and I've never been in this experience, but to my knowledge, you can't just walk in and have an organization say, here, we'd like you to do the survey, and the school department be able to do that. I don't and I'm not an expert on it, I don't think it can work that way. And at least in this case, it didn't. It was Ryan approved. I think that was it. And of course, behavioral health, which is where our recommendation is.
If I may, I really think your educational background and the work that you have done with the coalition is so important. But it's good to see that you have the background behind you educationally, so that everything coming through is such a sound practice through you and through other members of your coalition. That to me is a critical part. When you say that you go from one spectrum to the other spectrum, my question would be, what is their training, what's their educational expertise? And when you have people coming into the schools that don't have that kind of training or expertise, and I think that's maybe what you're referring to, somebody just coming in and saying, I want to do something, versus somebody with your background. And I thank you. I really thank you. And I enjoy working.
I don't think surveys are new to the school at this level. My son is in high school now, and they have been taking surveys. Is that true? You took one last year. I mean, it wasn't a big deal, and yeah, it did have some uncomfortable, maybe questions for the children. We were able to opt out, but I don't know if, I know parents have small children, and they think, ooh, that's kind of the questions and whatever. But regardless, I mean, the kids are getting older, 7th grade, 8th grade, they're going to be going into high school. And regardless if you go to public school or private school, there are drugs out there, there are behaviors out there. So I think definitely going forward with the survey, as I think we've had in the past, am I correct that we've had surveys in the past?
Yes.
Yeah, that we've collected, and we really haven't had much, problems with that. And I was interested in the information that was collected from the school and in the behaviors that in my son's class. And you think that there's no drugs and behaviors out there that your kids are going to be seeing in the future because they're in Little Compton? Well, they will. And definitely getting them involved and having the communication open at home. Is it uncomfortable? Did they come home and they said, oh, this question, and it about your mom, and I'm like, what did you say? You know what I mean? But they need to speak about it. That's the truth. And it needs to get out there, and they need to have the equipment when they go to high school, when there are drugs and other behaviors out there, not just at Portsmouth High School, not just at Tiverton High School, we're talking private schools everywhere. And I'm very happy that, and I hope that they agree to continue with this survey.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd be happy to make a motion to re-administer Rhode Island student survey.
Is there a second? I'll second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Thank you. Aye. Okay, you on the affirmative?
Affirmative.
Okay. So motion carries 3-1.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. All right, appreciate it. All right, moving back over to the first page. Under correspondence, just as a note to the committee members, we had a request from a parent who is out of state requesting that we consider or we look at our policy regarding students coming from out of district. So that correspondence is in your packet. We'll be revisiting this a little later on the agenda. Public input on anything on the agenda? Is there anything that anybody would like to make comment on any of the agenda items? Sure.
First of all, I'd like to say this setup here is a little like the acoustics are 10 times better than they are down in Compton.
Yeah.
Your neck's gonna hurt though.
Maybe you could work on getting a little better layout.
Yeah, we went to this sort of sideways deal so everybody could see the, the projector board.
May I just add, this was an Osborne design?
I'll take that up there. And two. Could I speak on that later?
Yeah. Yeah, you know what, when we get to that, I'll let us talk rather than getting into the discussion now. I'll allow that, John. All right.
Is this
Moving
public?
forward. Yep, go ahead, sorry.
Last night, I was at the Budget Committee meeting, and I think there's a lot of confusion between the Budget Committee and the school committee. And if, is that?
Hang on one sec. Why don't you wait till we get to the end, because I don't have the budget on the agenda.
Oh,
So if you want to make some comments in regards to the budget.
well, Mr. Chairman, I'll direct this towards you. I have questions for Mr. McNamee, and I thought it might come under his report, but I can let it go and listen to what he says and wait. I'll wait to the end. That's fine.
Yeah, either way, why don't we wait till we get to John's?
Okay, thank you.
I don't know the nature of your questions, but we'll find out. Spotlight on excellence.
So you have in front of you, this is a seed perch, and you know, and later on you're going to talk about if you have to approve a field trip. I thought you might want to know a little bit about the field trip before you approved it, so I thought we'd have a little bit of presentation, and then when you get to voting, you'll know what you're voting on.
All right. We have, I just wanted to make note, Kelly, Dr. Taviano was here. You're very, very involved with the Sea Perch.
Yes, I'm on the Undersea Foundation board,
Okay.
so I wanted to come and see their presentation.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. All right.
Okay, hi everyone. My name's Kelly Cole, and I am a Sea Perch teacher coordinator here at Wilburn Main School. And I'm just going to apologize first because I thought we were going to present in June after we possibly got back from our championship when we were going to Baton Rouge in May. So I thought we would come back with our massive trophy and show it to all of you, which we still can do. So I'm hoping we can do this. So this is just a little short presentation, and then I'll make a bigger one come June. So this is Franklin Littlefield, and he is one of our Sea Perch contestants. We're just going to talk a little bit about Sea Perch, and then I'm going to talk about what exciting opportunities Franklin and his friend Austin have come May. So Sea Perch is a program that is brought to us by Newark in Middletown, Rhode Island, and we had the opportunity to purchase what are called Sea Perch kits. And the Sea Perch kit, what it is it's a bunch of household items or just things that you can find every day at Home Depot. And what it is the kids take those household items and then they create an ROV, which is a remotely operated vehicle. And they start from scratch. I don't have any more from scratch. This is actually a completed version of it. But essentially what it is, it's an underwater submarine that the kids make. So as you can see, it's made of just PVC pipe, some mesh. They actually built these motors by hand from scratch. Okay, this stuff in here is actually toilet bowl cleaner. So the kids had to actually take it and put it in, and it was a huge, huge project. And this actually took 3 months for one of these to be built by a set of 2 kids. So we did this every single week from October, actually past December. And then finally at the end, the kids have something that looks like this. They also participate in creating the remote control. So this remote control right here started off with just a box and pieces, and the kids actually got to solder all of the little pieces together to create this remote control. And then at the end, after 3 months, they finally get to work it and see if it works. So some of the kids at the end were a little disappointed because all of a sudden they got to this piece and it didn't work. But finally by the end, 40 students had working ROVs that they got to put into the water and actually maneuver around. So what we did was we decided to go to the YMCA to try them out. So 40 students went, and we then had a race of some sort where they got to race these around doing different obstacles, and the kids who got the best time were put into a regional competition at the University of Massachusetts in Dartmouth, UMass Dartmouth. And there were 50 other teams from Rhode Island at that particular competition. So Franklin and his buddy Austin Wheeler were part of that group. We ended up bringing 9 kids with us. And so when he went, they were, like I said, they were up against 50 other teams. And sure enough, Franklin and Austin, they didn't win first place, but they won second place. But the kids in first place, first place couldn't go to the nationals down in Louisiana. So Franklin and Austin now have the opportunity to go to Louisiana State University on May 20th, 21st, and 22nd to participate in the national competition. So we're talking with hundreds and hundreds of schools, thousands of kids participating at the university, and we have representation from Wilburn McMahon School, which I think is just a huge, huge accomplishment. So what Franklin and Austin and Mrs. Wheeler is here, and Mrs. Dupuy is here, and we came up with the idea to fundraise money so that we can get the kids down to Louisiana. It is costly, I'm not gonna lie. The plane tickets alone are very, very expensive. So the students, along with the parents, have been doing a great job fundraising. They're going to Clement, they already have been, and they're still going to Clements Market and Lee's Market, and they're putting up these posters. And I'm just going to let Franklin just talk about how they have been doing at the markets, because they have a little spiel going on here, and it's really great. Do your spiel. Do your spiel.
So, in the U.S., the Navy created this program because the number of graduates who go into engineering has gone from 3rd in the world to 17th. And so they made this to inspire young minds to go into engineering or nautical science or anything along those lines. And 5% of all science graduates go into engineering. So our school had the opportunity to do that, and we ended up going to the regionals, as she explained, and we made it to the nationals, and it was a huge accomplishment, and we're gonna have a lot of fun, and we've been raising money at Clements and Lee's, and so we've had a couple of investors who put money towards it because they own their own company that has to do with underwater robotics, and that's pretty much it.
Excellent job. And if I could just ask Mrs. Dupuy and Mrs. Wheeler just to discuss the fundraising that we have here that you guys have come up with, if you don't mind. Could you stand up and just give your spiel?
We were trying to figure out, it was such a short amount of time, but I'm Kristen Dupuy, Franklin's mom. And we had such 4 weeks, I think, from the time we need to get the registration fees in, and by the time we found out we were going on this trip. So we were trying to figure out what could we do to raise some money. And I thought, well, I know we did the calendar sales at Clements Market last year, and that worked out really well. So I said, well, let's see if we can put some posters together and bring the Sea Perch submarine there and put it on display and talk it up and see if people will donate. Clements said they would help us, but we had to offer the customers something. We couldn't just ask for money. So I said, well, what about a bake sale? They said that would be great, but we already have 2 bake sales for April. So I said, well, sign us up and we'll come up with something. So as I was driving around, I thought, you know what, why don't we put together some community raffle baskets? Because Little Compton, our community stretches way outside of Little Compton. You know, we grocery shop at Lee's, we grocery shop at Clements, our kids go to high school there, we are in Tiverton all the time. So I was driving to Lee's to see what they could offer us for a weekend. I decided, well, let me run to Partners and see if they'd contribute a gift certificate, or let me run to 10 Cousins. And they were so happy to start giving the donations out that I thought, oh gosh, let me go to Newport and see what they'll do. Let me go to Portsmouth. So we now have 4 different baskets with, gosh, let's see, 2, 4, maybe 80 different items. We have gift certificates for $75, $50, everywhere from Newport to Westport. Clements, we were at Clements on last Saturday and Lee's on Sunday. And with those 2 days, we made just under $1,000. We have 2 more weekends to go, and, or well, 1 more weekend, 2 more days, 1 in each place. And let's see how that goes. We're going to be Austin's not going to make it on Saturday, so fingers are crossed. We do just as well. He did a great job. And then we did get, like Frank had said, some very nice contributions from someone who had a underwater company, naval company in Fall River. And then I just kind of walked into a couple engineering places in the business park in Middletown when I was out and about. And the company, an engineering company that makes screws, gave us a nice donation towards our cause. We found out about that today. So I've also printed up a raffle that might go home, so if any of you look at it like, oh, I want basket 4, you can get basket 4. Just fill out a form and send it into school.
Excellent.
Good.
Awesome.
Thank you, we appreciate the opportunity to speak. Any questions?
I have a question. How much does it cost for a student to get them down there and back? Instead?
$926.
So it's $926 per student?
Per student, per chaperone, per spectator, it's $926. That's including housing at the university, meal plan for the weekend, ground transportation, flight, everything.
So, I mean, I'm thinking that the school committee, I mean, I would make a motion to donate the school $926 on a match. If you guys, collected $926, that the school would donate $926. I would make that motion here today.
Okay.
I would second it.
That's going to be on your agenda later. We have an item coming up, you can put that in there when we deal with it under action items.
Say that again?
You have action items, this is going to be an action item.
I didn't see it on there.
And you can have that. Yeah, and in that approval, you can add that.
Just wanted to make sure that that will show up down there.
We're going to show
Thank
up
you.
down there. We've had that discussion.
Mr. Ruder.
I just wanted to add a couple of things. First of all, I would like to thank Mrs. Cole for being so instrumental in bringing this forward with our students. As you well know, 2 years ago, this is a program that started after school. And by us doing it for a couple of years and being able to bring it into the school day and putting Mrs. Cole as the person in charge of that program, the teacher in charge of that program, it has been tremendously successful. I also have to thank someone that is not here presently with us today, which is Mr. Bill Ferreira. He has been a tremendously good friend of education in our building. He has been a mentor since the inception of this program that we had here, together with Dr. Segala, which was the very first person that put together the program that we had at Wilbur McMahon After School. I want to publicly thank them for what they have done at Wilbur McMahon School. I cannot say enough about the students that have been involved in this program, and you can see basically what the parents have been doing in order to bring their dream forward to going to Louisiana. I think it's extremely important, and I'm going to take the liberty of doing so. It's extremely important to say that when Mrs. Dupuy and Mrs. I'm sorry, Will are being very humble basically about what they're doing, because when they say they're creating baskets, they've knocked at 33 doors in a matter of a couple of weeks, if you may. They've been in constant contact with Mrs. Cole. Mrs. Cole has been constantly in contact with me in order that we move this forward. It's a big, big endeavor. When the kids go and collect $900 at Clemens and Lee's, that's a lot of money. When you walk into someone and they give you $800 in town, it is a lot of money. So people do view the importance of this program. When you walk into a place like Mrs. Dupree walked in today, not knowing anyone from Wilbur McMahon School, but they have a love and devotion for a program that involves engineering, and they put a check in their hand for $500, that says something about what is taking place here at Wilbur McMahon School and devoted parents, devoted teachers, devoted community members that will come in and bring a program to fruition such as this. So I want to thank all of them.
Thank you.
Can I just say something?
Oh, sure.
They came in second place, but it was very, very, very close.
It was extremely close.
It was less than a point, wasn't it? A 1 point?
Yes, and each obstacle had different points, and some students came in right at the last minute, and I think they received 36 points, and Austin and Franklin received 33 points, or 34 points.
It was very
It was
close.
very, very close. So right at the end, they beat us, but that's okay, because we still have the opportunity to go to Louisiana, and we are very, very excited. Very excited. Great, thank you.
If anyone has the opportunity to go to Lisa Clements this weekend, you really should go. Well, I would say go to Clements Market on Sunday, because Austin's going to be there too. But you should see them give their little speech. So many people were just interested in what they had to say. And I'd say probably more than a third of the people just gave a donation and didn't even want to bother with their raffle tickets. And they had great questions, and they were really interested in what they had to say. And they just did it as if they were just talking to grandma, you know. They did it with ease. It was really fun to watch.
It was so amazing to see. I was there at the competition, and it was so amazing to see just their excitement about the whole thing, but not just the whole team was like rallying behind them. And Austin made a comment to me, and I said this a couple weeks ago at a meeting, but he made a comment to me right after. He said, "Mrs. Clark, I never would have done this if it was after school." And I was like, that's awesome. You did something in school that you found something that you love. He's like, I never would have done it. I would have been in football, or I would have been. And he was so excited and so proud of him. And I just wanted to hug him and be like, oh, Austin. But it was just a really good, feel-good moment. And we got on the bus and we were like, call Mr. Ruda. Call him. We were so excited. And it's just a great thing for our school. And to be at a national competition, representing our town and representing our school with that kind of enthusiasm and that kind of a story where it's something that they never would have done had it not been something that they were almost not forced into doing, but it was part of the curriculum. If it hadn't been there, it wouldn't have been where we are. And now these two boys, they've had their eyes open to something that maybe they wouldn't have considered before. So that's exciting to me. So, anyway, thank you.
I just wanted to make one last comment, Mr. Chairman, is that we are trying as a school community to gather some big support within the building. As this Friday, we are having a crazy hat day. There was an email that went home today. We rallied last week with the students in an open mic. We basically are doing the crazy hat day this Friday, and we have Penny Wars next week. And we're trying to really bring the faculty together with students and the community at large to be involved in this in order that we send 2 of ours to a national stage, if you may.
All right. We'll be revisiting this again later on our agenda. Thank you very much for coming and speaking with us. All right. Superintendent's report.
Last month, we talked about seeing a chief 3,000 here. We're fortunate they're unable to make it tonight. We originally were scheduled to come, and something came up, so we're going to put that off to the May meeting, presentation on that. And the other thing that we're going to have tonight is the Ames Web presentation. People have asked to have some information on that, so we're going to do Ames Web tonight.
Okay. Who's, we're going to get that discussion now?
Yep, we're going to do that right now.
Yeah.
You want the lights off in the back?
Yeah, that's going to do it.
You'll leave the middle row.
Okay. Which one? Mr. Ruda asked
AimsWeb that we use in our school as an assessment tool. So he and I will be presenting tonight. My partner is unable to change. I'm just going to give you a little bit of background about assessments before I dive into what AimsWeb is and what it does. In education, we have three main types of assessments. Summative, which usually given at the end of the year, end of a unit. Another example would be a state assessment. These assessments assess a student's mastery of a topic after instruction. Diagnostic assessment is the second type of assessment we give in schools. It's typically given at the beginning of the school year, the beginning of a new unit. This type of test attempts to quantify what students already know about the topic. Some examples in our schools that we use are the DRAs for reading, key math, when assessing math, a little more diagnostically. Formative assessment is the third type of assessment that we use in education. It's given throughout the learning process. Formative assessment seeks to determine how students are progressing throughout certain learning goals. These are usually given on a daily or weekly basis, such as exit slips, teacher checklists, teacher observations. Those are all types of formative assessment, and they're primarily used to drive instruction. So, how does AimsWeb fit into all this? AimsWeb is a type of formative assessment. And when used together, all three types, diagnostic, formative, and summative assessments, that's when we really can use data to drive our instruction. It should never be used by itself, any of those three, to drive instruction at the district level, school level, or even at the student level. So what is AimsWeb? It's a universal screening tool. It progress monitors, and it's a data management system for us at this school. It screens all students, and I'll go into a little bit more about that, 3 times a year. It identifies those who are at risk for academic failure and enabling early intervention. It also provides teachers with instructional recommendations to differentiate student instruction. This tool is also brief. It can be administered frequently. It doesn't take a long time to administer. Some tasks are 3 minutes, some are 8. In 7th and 8th grade, 2 of the assessments are 10 minutes. It provides predictions for reading and math achievement, and it's a valid and reliable tool for us to use at the school. All right, currently we are using 4 assessments from AimsWeb. 2 are reading, 2 are mathematics. The oral reading CBM is given individually to each student in grades 1 through 8, 3 times a year. The maze is also a reading assessment, and that utilizes the closed technique that's given whole class. And what the closed technique is the students read a sentence, and they have a multiple choice of 3 words that they can circle to fill in the blank. And it's usually a missing keyword. It wouldn't be is or the. It's just a keyword that they have to circle. Math computation, that's what it is. Computational skills, and grades 1 through 8 also take that. And math concepts and applications is math problem solving. And that's given in grades 2 through 8.
If you want to be more specific about the oral reading, that takes 3 minutes. The maze also takes 3 minutes. And these last 2, the MComp and the MCAP, they take 8 minutes apiece, with the exception of the
7 and 8.
7 and 8th grade take 10 minutes.
May I ask a question? Is this based on Common Core, or is this based on general education?
General education, but it is aligned to Common Core. But it's general education. So with AimsWeb, we can utilize it as a universal screening tool 3 times a year. They're given in September, January, and in May. And what it does is it efficiently screens all students, identifies those at risk, facilitates early intervention, measures, monitors, and documents the effects of instructional change, and it gives us a lot of good data for RTI. When it's used as a progress monitoring, we especially use it for PLP students and personal literacy plan students and RTI students who go to RTI, response to intervention. We use this tool to determine the effectiveness of an intervention that we put in place, as well as monitor to see if the students are progressing to meet the goal that we targeted when we wrote the goal. So Mr. Aruda is going to speak of the chart that you will see when the data is processed, and one of the graphs you see is the box in this graph.
You really can't, you're not able to see, but within this particular box there is a grade that it's placed in there according to the outcome of the student within the assessment. And as you also can see, there is various categories that go with below the 10% or below the percentile, 10 percentile, 25th percentile, medium, and then the high above it goes between the 75 and the 90 percentile. And that gives an indication to the teacher basically how is it that the student is going to be worked within the particular teacher, looking into basic within a 25-point average range in order to work with that particular student.
These scores are given, we can get them individually as whole class and whole school, and also whole grade. Okay, so in a nutshell, AimsWeb is just one piece of our puzzle here at Wilbur School. It's a screening tool used to identify various aspects, as well as provide teachers with an understanding of their students' reading and math abilities. AimsWeb data is to be used in conjunction with other measures to provide a more complete picture of the students' reading and math skills. Any questions?
Yes. Only only teachers are accessible to this information, correct?
That's a Mr. Rudy question.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Only teachers can access this information.
From the website, it's web-based, from the website?
Right, I mean, if my daughter wanted to go and check and see how her kids were doing, she couldn't get into that. So it's only teacher accessible,
Yes.
number one.
And teachers are only get their classes, they can only see their classes.
Okay, so if in taking a particular test, the teacher sees that out of a class of 12, 10 get an answer wrong, then I would assume she would go back and reteach?
Correct. Well, she wouldn't reteach that specific skill.
So what's the purpose? If it shows 10 out of 12 kids aren't doing something right.
Correct, I misunderstood your question. Yes, yes, absolutely.
So
I
they
thought you
go
said
back
one.
and reteach?
Yes, correct,
Okay.
yes.
And by the way, if it's related to Common Core, no test related to Common Core is valid. Just throwing it out there. I just have to throw it out there, because that's a false statement. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this presentation. I just want to clarify though, I would think that all tests that our children take are available to the parents, and I know that I as a parent asked for the AimsWeb and received it. So I think it is, correct me if I'm wrong, accessible to
She
parents.
asked, I misunderstood, I thought you said, you thought that your daughter could go on and access the information herself. In order to get the information, it has to be submitted, a request submitted to Mr. Aruda, and then parents can access the information.
If I understand
Parents
the
can't go
question,
online to access it.
Okay, yeah. So
That's-
if as a parent I want to get it, then I go and request it from you.
correct.
That's the only way to get
We
it.
have, as past practice, we have invited parents to come in and be able to sit down with the teacher and look at the AimsWeb scores. We had a couple of requests to submit them, and I spoke with the superintendent. He says, make it, that they see what the scores are, and we submitted them electronically. There is nothing to hide within the scores. We think that by the parent coming in and sitting down with the teacher facilitates the understanding of the layout of the AimsWeb outcome. But if anybody does request it, we do send it out electronically now.
My purpose for drilling down really is so that parents understand that this is a learning capability for them when students are taking something. They can judge and see how well the kids are learning, and if not, what they need to do to go back and help the kids to learn. So I was thinking of this as a learning tool for teachers as well. So parents aren't thinking that we're hiding things. It helps both student and teacher.
What was the comment you made about the validity of this test?
It's connected into Common Core, which automatically makes it not a valid test. So she said it was valid. That I need to know which way it was made valid, because it's connected to Common Core. Common Core and block has to be shown to be
Well, validity in the sense that it measures what it's supposed to measure, what it's set out to measure.
Mr. McHugh?
I just have a couple of questions. And excuse me if I didn't pick up on it when you said it. The students are assessed 3 times.
As a universal screening tool, correct.
September,
School-wide.
January, and May. So summer, I know you said 3 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes. So just for an example, an 8th grader, he's assessed September, January, and May. How many minutes is he assessed total when he's assessed?
About 30.
30 in September, 30 in January, 30 in May?
No.
Okay, so it's 10 minutes, 10 minutes, and 10 minutes.
Correct.
So the cost of this, I just want to make sure we're getting bang for our buck here. The cost for this, which was, I think last meeting I had the numbers for that. I don't have them here.
About 2,300.
No, that was the 3,000.
Achieve 3,000.
That was the Achieve 3,000.
No.
This is a different program.
It's a different program.
Yes, yeah.
Glad I turned to the right and asked that.
Yeah.
So,
Still a good question.
Thank you.
It's a different instrument.
what is the cost? Is there a cost for this?
There is a yearly licensing fee for this.
Oh, there's a licensing fee, which we kind of put, discussed in the budget a few
It
years
is in the
ago.
budget.
How much is it?
I believe it's $2,300.
Okay.
But we universally screen all students, and from there, we progress monitor certain students who have PLPs or are in RTI. So we use it many more times for those.
PLP is,
Our personal literacy plan,
and RTI is,
response to intervention.
yes, okay.
Oh.
Thanks for clearing that up.
But I might as well put out there, because there has been quite a few questions from parents concerning some of the data from AimsWeb. And there are students that come to our school from other systems that AimsWeb is administered within those systems, and there is another component of AimsWeb that people are looking into. So we have decided to contact the company. We have basically had a webinar with the company concerning adopting, with no further expense, adopting a written component to this to make it more valid, if you may, as to some of the questions that we do have out there. The other piece that we are looking into, as we were explaining at the last school committee meeting, is when you bring in Achieve 3000, one and the other goes hand in hand. We do have a tendency to close our gaps immediately with the student that falls below the line, and we have a little bit more of difficulty going on the students that achieve at a higher level, and that is why we are also proposing that we bring Achieve 3000. Looking at other school systems, and you know that we always look at Portsmouth, we always look at Barrington, but Portsmouth is sending out students to the high school just like we do. And I had called the principal of Portsmouth Middle School. Before I spoke with Joe, I also spoke with Lisa Little at Hathaway Middle School. She's the principal there. And we've been trying for almost a year now to find a program that does the universal screening to replace AimsWeb. And there is no such program out there yet. So Portsmouth has decided about 3 years ago to also add together with this a program called Scantron. And it's not Scantron like you people doing, correcting tests or quizzes. So Portsmouth did that for 3 years, and last year they decided to drop Scantron because it wasn't doing enough of a job for them, and they adopted STAR. Now, when I made my phone call a year ago to Hathaway High School, middle school, elementary school, and I spoke with the principal there, we wanted Because there are many programs that basically from grades 3 to 8, they do the job, that they don't do the job extremely well from K to 2. And when I asked that question, because we wanted to look into the STAR program, I was told that the STAR does not do a great job from K to 2. So finally, after much deliberation in Portsmouth, they decided to take K to 2 and we use Abe's Web, and 3 to 8 they are using the STAR program. Just to give you a little bit of information and a heads up of what's coming.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Did you have a question, Ivan? You know, I actually did, please. So, I know you spoke of the RTI and all of that, but what happens if the student is above board, above average? What happens then?
The differentiating piece comes in, and we have worked on that. It is not our best piece out there, and we are working on making that a little bit better. And the confusing piece, there's a confusing piece to all of this with Ames Web. And I know the question was going to come, because you're not the only one that has asked that question. And I have had many discussions and disagreements with how is it that we look at the student and at the reading level. And the student has a very high reading lexile. It reads extremely well. And then the comprehension piece comes in, kicks in. And I have, and this is not anyone in particular, but I'm going to basically generalize. You can have a student reading 150 miles an hour, but if he does not have the understanding, and I mentioned that prior to in another school committee meeting, if he does not have the understanding of what he has read, that to me has no validity. As an educator, one and the other have to go hand in hand as to the ability to read and the ability to comprehend in order that you'll be able to transfer that comprehension into a written piece. That is why we are now bringing the written piece in order that it is individually corrected and analyzed by the teacher in the classroom in concert with the ability of the lexile of that student. And then Mrs. Hall, and then with that, those two in hand, we'll be able to create a better plan for the differentiated instruction.
Mr. Chairman, if you remember last meeting we had, that's the reason we started looking at Achieve 3000, is because that's a way to look at the levels of kids, and for kids who need to be challenged, that program automatically ranks, ratchets that up so you can challenge kids up there and automatically adjust back for kids who may not have the same level of ability. But I think that, and Mr. Root is right, but people, a simple way to understand it is that, there are people who can read very quickly because what their skill is they can decode, they can sound, they get the words. But then you have to attach meaning to words, and you have to attach meaning to a paragraph of what those words mean. And there are kids who can quickly go through and decode and read stuff. But then you have to go back and attach the meaning and the words to that. And if you don't have that skill, that becomes sometimes difficult. So that's why you'll see sometimes you get kids that, you'll see a kid and they don't do really well in school, and all of a sudden they use these big words, these vocabulary words. Those kids read. Those are kids who are reading books, but sometimes they don't apply themselves. But those kids oftentimes may struggle in one area, but they have all that, what they read or what they get, they pick up, they keep it, it gets locked in. Some other kids sometimes will go through it quickly, and they have trouble assigning that. So there's that blend of when are you able to do that and when are you not able to do that. It's the attorney who can go through and not only read the words, but understand how all the words are connected to the words, because if you don't, that's when you get in trouble. That would not be me as an attorney, but
if I just to say, Dr. Potter, I think it's a very important issue that was brought up. I mean, if you have a kid that's a high-scoring kid, and people, parents are thinking about sending them to lower, do we have something in place to challenge these kids? We have small classes, small class size. You know, we need to be a school that can challenge kids that are smart and bright, and are we doing it? I think that's what you were trying to get at, I don't know, but I think we have to keep finding programs and challenging our teachers and challenge these students so parents in this community can feel comfortable that if they got a bright student, he's going to flourish here. So I have all the faith in the world that you're going to be on top of that.
And I think we're doing that. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons I said to you when we talk about class size. You know, if you class size is only as good as the opportunities you take to use the class size. So if you have a small group of kids and you can individualize with those kids and you do differentiated instruction, you do a lot of other things because you've got a small group, then you're going to get your bang for your buck. If you do the same thing with 15 kids as you did with 25 kids, then you might as well have 25 kids in the class. If I'm going to hand out dittos and I'm going to do this and that and those are my 3 tricks and I have no other tricks, then 25 kids is fine. But if you're going to say to me, okay, I've got 15 kids, and I say, well, I got 15 kids now, well, good, I'm going to have this kid work on this, I'm going to do this over here, this kid I'm going to have him doing this other project because I know he's got the ability. I can do that because I've got the time to do it and I'm not, you know, trying to do 25. That's where the difference comes in. When people start talking about class size, if the research is real clear, if you don't change your instruction with class size, then it doesn't make a difference. So, you know, lower numbers, it's just not in the numbers, it's also in what you do when you do have the lower numbers. And I think that, you know, Mr. Ruda and some of the programs we're looking at, we're trying to get to that piece because I recognize that we have the ability to do that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I feel obligated to answer Mr. McHugh of that question. If I may?
Absolutely.
Mr. McHugh, we, and this is honestly, we are not doing the job that we need to do at Wilbur McMahon, presently achieving the high achiever. We are not. We are a work in progress for that. And I stand here not being ashamed of saying that, because anybody in this committee that has been sitting here or prior to as a spectator for any committee for the past 4 years, we have had a constant, capitalized, a constant change in this school because we did not have anything in place when it came to a curriculum. And a curriculum is a piece that drives the instruction every single day. When I'm told that it was a scope and sequence, that's just telling me that what you're going to do. But you need to know how to do it in order to become a curriculum format. We're not there. Certain subjects are better than others. I can take our students and I can place them anywhere in math without a problem. We are now, today with Mrs. Susan Shaw, and this is why I've been fighting that we keep what we have in place. We looked at a curriculum for first grade that is harder than the present curriculum that we have for second grade and 10 times harder than the curriculum that we have for kindergarten. Then when we look at teachers asking us now, it's not that we are bringing to them. We have teachers asking us now, right now. We see that third grade is doing extremely well with the ELA Engaged New York. Can we pilot this? We give them the okay, we spend the dollars. And then we see that the other teacher at the other level say, that is really working well for the neighbor. Can I give it a try? So that is falling into place and the rigor is in there. It's not an overnight thing. It is not an overnight thing. We don't even want to talk science because there are many things that we have to do in science. But they are falling into place. The goal is, and I asked for 5 years, and I said that I would do 5 years with this school and we would see fruits of the labor within 5 years. We stopped seeing fruits of the labor last year on my 3rd year. And I feel that we have done as a school a tremendous job. We have had teachers in this school that are extremely dedicated. You see what's coming into this school committee. We look at the grades that the high school students have, that we are tracking them. The present high school class that that is there right now with all A's and B's. We track them for the second quarter, it's the same exact thing. We are looking into, this is why I start getting excited and passionate when we look at programs that we have in place, and we're looking at numbers, and it's not all up.
The presentation on the Ames Web. I think it is a great tool. Thank you. All right. Mr. McNamee.
Fortunately, you had a few dollars for us. That seems to be the problem. I didn't make last night's meeting, but I did have a discussion with the president of the town council and town business manager relative to what transpired last night at the budget meeting. But in your reports, I reiterated the makeup of the accumulated surplus that we have. So as of the end of June 30th, 2015, we had $263,000 of accumulated surplus. As you know, probably in October, November this year, we voted to use $40,000 of that for the recreation fund. So that money was transferred over to the town to support the recreation fund. We then voted to transfer $100,000 to capital reserve, which we would then kind of leverage with the governor's program to do some things here in the school. We didn't identify exactly what we would spend that $100,000 on, because at this point in time, we need to kind of take a look at what we need in the school. We have to prioritize those. We're going to have to compete for that money based on need. So we have to put some work into that plan. I mean, it's easy enough to throw a plan together and spend $100,000, but I don't think that was the intent of putting that money and setting that aside. So we do have that $100,000, which we have transferred into a separate a cash account that we used when we were building, renovating this building here. So that left us with about $100,000 that we wanted to set aside for any special ed type of expenditures. And the reason we selected that $100,000 is we have Medicaid funds that are owed to us. We recorded the revenue that owed to us by the region, Newport Special Ed, Newport County Regional Special Ed Program. And that's approximately, it's a little over $100,000. So the intent was to set aside that money, which we have sitting as a receivable on our balance sheet, as a reserve and special education expenditures that would come up. For example, always getting emails about a potential student that might be going out of district, and sometimes those students will cost upwards to $65,000, $70,000 for an annual expense. So rather than have it impacting the budget, current year budget, we say we'll set aside that $100,000 and use that for those unusual expenses. So once we pull that out, we're left with about $23,000 of what I call accumulated surplus that would be for general operations. If you look at where we stand today, I'm showing a deficit of $44,289, which includes the $40,000 that we spent
internally. There's some who view us, our surplus as still being $223,000.
Well, no, it's not. The 100,000 still stayed in the general fund.
Yeah.
I granted that, but we did transfer out the 40, we did transfer out the 100,000 from the capital reserve. And the concept is not looking at it by year. So if the budget committee is just looking at this year, that's not, and I believe that the committee's intent was to look at a more longer-term view in terms of the capital reserve. The problem with most of the schools in Rhode Island is they take the capital out of the budget in order to balance the budget. And what happens to the schools, they get into the condition that they're in. I mean, if I look back on your operating budgets here in Little Compton, I can guarantee you there was a lot of money that was put into those budgets for capital improvements. And you look at your 16 budget, there's nothing in there for capital improvements at all. So that 100,000 is basically what we have to look. Plus, we're going to get a 40% contribution from the state for everything we do. And to have that money set aside puts us in a good position in order to add some value to the school. It's not what that do, so. It's not often I have to defend the surplus as opposed to a deficit, but in this case I have to defend the surplus. So,
I know, it times defies logic. Mr. McHugh?
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Mack, maybe the budget committee obviously has a distrust for the school, from what we've seen in the last few meetings. They think we're padding the budget.
well, I wouldn't say just for the schools,
For the school.
for the town as a whole.
For the town, okay, as a town, I'll stick to the school. When I'm listening to you, it seems that you think the budget committee is missing the boat on capital improvements. For us putting that 100,000 in another account and being able to leverage it with that 40% reimbursement. They don't seem to, that doesn't seem, we have a disconnect there. Am I right? I mean, do you think that we're having a disconnect, the budget committee, in that respect?
Well, yeah, personally, I think they need to do it for the town as well, too, and I told them that. At this point, you're right. I think what they're saying is that they want you to use that surplus. They don't want you to have a surplus. Even though you have the intent on using that surplus to increase the value to the town of maintaining this building or adding value to the building. So you're not going to get into a position where, you have to go out and you have to bond, take out a bond in order to do things that you need to do around here. And if, in having participated in the building program, there were plenty of items that had to be taken out of that building program, and Sir Tommy can attest to that, because we were going to be over budget on the construction side. So we know there are things that need to get done on this building, because we were locked into that $11.3 million in terms of bond. We didn't exceed that.
Right, that segues into, I think the other contention the budget committee has is with our 5-year plan. Is that what they're calling it?
5-year capital.
I think that's an excuse, but
So it's a 5-year capital plan. Are we required to have a 5-year capital plan?
there's a 5-year asset protection plan that Pride requires that we'll be putting together.
Okay.
We put together every year, but last year, basically, we didn't really have any needs in terms of the 5-year. So
Does the committee that you're on, the strategic planning committee, does that fall under their purview, this 5-year plan? There's nothing to do with them. So who puts together this 5-year capital plan, yourself?
the asset protection plan, I would probably put together in conjunction with discussions with the committee. Obviously, Mr. Waldo was very involved in the schools, so he knows those areas that we may have to look at over the next few years.
Is there a subcommittee you would consider for this plan?
Yeah, but I think we can set up a subcommittee, to put that together. I mean, I think, Bill Moore has been fairly active. I mean, it would be a small building committee. I think we need someone from the custodial staff on there. You know, just a mini version of the building committee, you know?
Yeah, I mean, most districts will look at it from the standpoint of what they can afford versus what they need.
Yeah.
So I think our goal would try to be to get some common ground with the budget committee and then put this plan together and the capital improvements and try to get some common ground with them and let them know what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, I think their request, you know, they last night had told us that they had requested this 5 weeks ago. It wasn't a conversation that I was a part of. I think when they met with Bob, they had put it on the table, but
Well, what they said was, when John and I met with them, well, you're going to have this thing. It would be nice if you had a 5-year capital plan. It would be nice if you had a 5-year capital plan. I mean, and we didn't disagree with that, but we didn't have the ability at that point to say, oh, well, we'll be back next week with a 5-year plan. I mean,
no, I
take some
understand.
time. And we didn't disagree with them, but for them to say, we told you that, and oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you that if you don't have it in 5 weeks, I'm not going to give you any money, that never got said.
No, I understand that.
I didn't hear that part. I would have remembered.
You know, as I said, I have not focused too much on this building over the past year by virtue of what we just completed. So we'll get there. I think, you know, we've got some money set aside and good use. So, any other questions for John?
You want me to wait till the end, or?
No, it's
All right.
in reference to the budget.
It's totally in reference to this. So, having gone to budget committee meetings where I've been the only person there on multiple times, I really feel there's a huge communication issue with you guys and the town council and the budget committee. So, I'll ask a question to you, but if maybe Mr. Mackin would have the answer. They were talking, you know, the $262,000 surplus is not this year's surplus, right? It's the previous year's, correct? And carried over.
It's probably a accumulation of 2 years.
Okay, so it's but not this fiscal year. And this year's fiscal budget was when we went up and we asked for a $50,000 increase, correct? That's this year we're in now.
Correct.
If you didn't have that $50,000 increase, would you have an extraordinary deficit this year?
We'd have 50 to the 44,000 we'd have $94,000.
So you needed that $50,000.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so then to finish this up with an obvious answer, you're not going to have a $200,000 surplus on this year's fiscal budget. No. Thank you.
If we do, I'm not going to be around. We won't have to.
Yeah, not when you're.
That really clears a lot of things up when they start, well, whatever. Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to the committee reports. Polly, what's with school committee?
I've had one meeting since our last meeting, and I should report that it was 33 minutes long for the big school district, 33 minutes long. What's my point? And they pretty much just finalized their budget and did some hiring and firing. There's nothing really that pertained to us.
All right. Mr. McHugh, recreation.
Yeah, I'll speak on it briefly. If anyone, I know some new faces here. We're going to have a new field, we're going to have a new walking path, we're going to have new tennis courts. And what you see with those piles of dirt over there, they need 4 weeks to complete it of good weather. Obviously, we're not having good weather. So hopefully in the next meeting, we'll have 2 or 3 weeks of good weather. And I can report to you that things are going along very well. And people can get off the street and walk on a nice walking path. We'll play some tennis and just enjoy the field.
Not right away.
We're going to get to that.
Make sure you put that out
I'm
there.
not putting that up there yet. Thanks.
All right. Okay, on the health and wellness.
Health and wellness is quiet this month. That's it.
Okay.
I can tell I just wanted to-
You're healthy and well.
We're healthy and well.
That's good.
I was wealthy and
All right. Policy Subcommittee. Okay, you again.
Okay, right now we're working with Mr. Benjamin about looking into, we have a policy, an acceptable use policy, but it came up that students were emailing each other back and forth during class time. So Mr. Benjamin was looking at the possibility of being able to identify emails that are going back and forth and setting a parameter of X number. If a student was going over that, why are they going over that? What class are they in? And why is that happening? Because students shouldn't be emailing each other during class time. So that was a concern.
Of course, they should be texting. Everybody knows that.
That's right, on their personal, not on school property. So that was one of the things. And then the personal management system that we have for substitutes, we looked at, because this is all under the policy issue, looked at upgrading and putting, we have $85 now and making the number $100 as we voted in committee. And then at the end, the substitutes are to be evaluated by administration. And it was evaluated, but there was no by administration. It's been left off, so that's been taken care of. And then we discussed use of building by out-of-school organizations and individuals, and we're still working on that, but presently I think the idea is if the organization that wants to come in not on a daily basis where they pay for it, but on a more permanent basis, would have to be under the management of the school committee, and if they're not, that wouldn't be acceptable. So, but we're still working on that as well.
So we basically, of those three areas, we have a first read.
At this point, 9.4.2 personal management system, it's just a matter of housekeeping and we're just updating some information. So that we're going to be looking at later in the agenda to go up.
All right.
Otherwise, the other two, we're still developing those policies and we will be coming to another meeting with those policies. We're putting our due diligence into the development of them.
All right.
Can I ask for a clarification of what management by the school committee means for an organization or individual that is requesting?
Yeah, Pam, what was that statement you just made a few seconds ago?
If the organization that was coming in wasn't under the auspices of the school committee.
Okay.
In other words, we're looking at we're looking at the legalities, we're looking at the affordability, we're looking at the space, and basically what she's referring to is that it's best for the school and the safety of the children that any organization. Again, this is a proposal and we're working on the policy, but it may be the best thing for the students that any organization that would be housed in the school be under the auspices of the school committee so that there's proper management of any organization that's falling within our purveyance.
Well, all right, well.
But it would be written clearly and it would be up for discussion, but we're just putting together based on what we're getting from other districts. We're intending conversation with our legal counsel, and we're working through it. So it's not something, it's a new policy, so it's not going to happen quickly. We're just putting it together so that we understand it and that we have something professionally written for the committee to consider.
All right. We don't have any control over any organizations outside of the school department.
No, we're not saying that we want control over the, again, we're developing this policy.
That's fine.
But it's just that there would be some control over any group that would be in the school would be falling under the rules and regulations and purveyance of the school.
That's cool.
Sure.
Mr. Scungio, we might as well get you involved here. I know you're getting bored over there.
Never by you.
All right, that's good. Do you have any clarity to this issue for us?
haven't reviewed it yet, so no, I don't. My understanding is the subcommittee is going to put some kind of policy of all points together and then send it to us to turn it into a policy.
Well, not this particular, but in general, because you do a lot of school committees, do they have,
27.
right, do they have was it use of a building to out-of-school organizations, individuals that you can reference that you might be able to give us some clarity to?
Virtually all school districts do, which I can do.
They do, so you just.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And do we, I don't know, do we have anyone in this school that?
I think what Mr. McHugh is asking is that what the policy committee is looking to do is to create a policy not for people coming in and using the building temporarily, but if an organization was to be housed
On a long-term basis.
Housed on a long-term basis, what is their liability and other kinds of things for housing? An example, if there was an after-school program that was brought in here by the YMCA and run by the YMCA, and something happens to some of the kids in that after-school program, and they're housing that program, what is their responsibility and liability? Do they have a contract with the YMCA to provide aftercare service for the kids? And what is their, liability with that? If some other organization said, I want to have my organization housed here because I don't have a place for my organization, what kind of guidelines should the school committee have to protect themselves as far as liability issues go, as far as, the whole reflection of the school committee? Because if for some reason that organization did something that was out of step with the school committee or created some kind of hullabaloo in the community, the school committee, by virtue of the fact that they're housing that, could then be sitting with, you're part of that because they're under your roof. And so I think that's what we're trying to get to, some kind of policy of how they would handle that kind of request for any organization that might say, we'd like to be under your roof. That's the issue. And there's not a lot of them around. I mean, I know in Newport, the Newport Partnership for Families is in the school administration building, and that's at the high school. And that's been almost like an arm of the school department that has written grants for them. But that's one example I can think of, but I don't know that they have any kind of written, formal, agreement with the school department, other than the school department housing there, because it's very beneficial, because they bring a lot of money for grants for kids in the school system that the school system couldn't get because they're not a private 501c3. They can get money for the school department. It's advantageous for them to have that group under their roof. That's an example.
So in those kind of circumstances, usually what we look at is multiple levels of insurance. So we look at the first level of insurance. Typically, you have the trust here.
The trust, yeah.
So we make sure that through the representatives at the trust that you vet what that organization is going to do and make sure that your insurance covers them. Then the second level of policy is we make sure that the participating agency or group that comes in also has insurance and has us as a co-insured. We get that insurance policy by policy. We have the trust review that to make sure it's satisfactory to them. Then what we do is have that organization provide a waiver and an indemnification to the school district. So you have 3 levels of protection. Because ultimately, if a child is injured, the school district is going to be sued. So the question was, who can we leverage? What insurance policies can we leverage and other assets can we leverage to protect the school committee and the school district? Additionally, what we do is generally there's a vetting process created in the policy for a long-term lease. John wrote down Kids Club on my pack because he knows in North Providence they developed a policy to allow Kids Club to come in and actually do an after-school program. The YMCA in Lincoln also did the same thing in Lincoln and North Providence for a while, where they provide services after school to kids and ran some really nice programs. So those are commonly utilized across the state. Patrick, I don't think it would be difficult to come up with a policy to accommodate the things that you need to do if you intend on bringing an organization like that in. On the other side, what we see a lot of is, for instance, a private soccer league that would come in and use your fields on a long-term basis. And In that kind of circumstance, again, we like to see those same levels of insurance, and we also like to see a short-term lease agreement that provides their responsibilities. And what you get to do in that circumstance in particular is, if you wish to charge them fees using the services, generally what we do is we try to set up a situation where they give you in-kind service basis, so you don't have to worry about the money that comes in from the school committee basically being pulled into the general account of the town, because the school committee doesn't have the right to generate its own capital. So we usually look at policy considerations that will, for instance, there are some leagues that will come in and recondition gym floors. There are some that will come in and make lighting improvements. There are some that will come in and maintain soccer fields, baseball fields, basketball courts. So depending on the kind of organizations that you think you might be involved with, certainly can create policies around that to make sure, A, that we're covered in terms of liability, and B, perhaps we can generate either some revenue or in-kind contributions to the school district that would be a benefit to it. So you can both benefit the kids, benefit the district at the same time. So we've got a bunch of ideas. I'd be happy to talk to you about that. Thank you.
You've actually really pegged.
Yeah, and thank you for the clarification.
All right, thank you very much for that. Superintendent search subcommittee. We're going to move that down, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll move it down. Should move that to meeting too. I entertain a motion then to move that down.
I make a motion that we move line item 9.5 to fall immediately after item 11.6.
I'll second it. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, getting into the discussion items. We had a letter sent to Dr. Powell requesting, asking the school committee to consider a request to allow their student who's from out of state to attend Wilbraham School. It's been over 2 years ago. I was actually not, I remember what meeting it took place at. I was not at the meeting where they voted to allow out-of-district students to come to Wilbur, and I think the tuition that was set at the time was the per pupil cost. I don't know what that figure is off the top of my head. I know it's in excess of $17,000 per child. So needless to say, during that time, we have not had any requests of any parents to send their children here, and I think we knew at the time that it was rather expensive to do that at that per pupil cost. So I think we're going to be, actually what I would, well, we'll talk about it now before we down below. But we're going to be seeing these requests, I think, I hope, increasing in the future, especially if the state moves in a direction where you have cross-districting students. So anyway, we're going to have something before us. Anybody have any comments or questions they want to ask right now?
Yeah, I'd like to say something. I think that having students coming in, bringing income into our system is a positive. It's money that we're not looking to the town for. It's money that we have to be able to work with. And I don't believe that having more students would be a bad thing for us. It helps keep our school open, it helps keep our school running. I think that having our tuition set at the current cost per pupil, which is a number that kind of goes up and down, it's arguable what exactly that number is. It's someplace in the range of 17,000 currently. I think that it would be much smarter to maybe consider a lower tuition where if we were to bring a student in and bring that income with them and have it be a reasonable cost versus sending that student to a private school, if we were in that comparable range, we pay, what is it, $9,600 for a student going to Portsmouth. Roughly $9,500. So we wouldn't be busing this student necessarily. I don't think that there's a lot of cost that goes into it. I would propose that maybe we set it closer to that $10,000 range, or even at that $9,500 range where we're paying to send our students to. It's going to offset the cost of the student that we send to Portsmouth. It's going to help our classroom sizes, provided we have a policy in place that it's saying that we have the right to refuse a student if there's a disciplinary issue, or, you know, they have to follow the same rules that we would expect of the code of conduct with our own students. As long as it's a benefit for the district, I think that it's something that we really should consider.
Yes, sir.
If I may.
Yes, ma'am. Just tap me in the back.
I just got this information from Portsmouth today. I made a request to Letty over there, and she forwarded it on to Mr. I never know how to say his last name, Deloro, Chris Deloro. Yeah. Delorio.
So, yes.
On how they came to the rate for Little Compton students at Portsmouth, because their per pupil cost is much higher than what we actually pay. So I just got this afternoon. I'd be more than happy to forward it on to you about the things that they removed from their per pupil price in deciding what they would charge us. And it was busing and administration, instructional paraprofessionals, you know, all things like that.
Okay.
So Portsmouth has a formula
Yeah,
that they arrived at that $9,500 figure.
yeah,
You have it there?
yeah.
Be careful what you ask for. Did they raise the price? They realize they're undercharging.
I mean, I think we do need a formula here that suits Wilbur. I mean, just throwing around numbers, you know, I think we need to look at it. I don't know if we want to table that before we vote on it. And
I think the point that was just made is going to be an important one, because we are under year 5 of a contract with Portsmouth. I mean, I certainly am not against looking at how they arrived at theirs and seeing where our number comes to, but it would seem that for purposes of what we're trying to achieve, what we're paying to send our kids out of district, it makes sense to be looking to charge that same amount for kids coming in district, into our district. Yes, ma'am.
One of the reasons why we're in trouble with the budget committee is because of the numbers that are changing and are going down instead of going up. I am concerned when you bring in another child in first grade. Now the number is supposed to be what? I've got 16 here on the packet for kindergarten students that are going into first grade. But now there's another number that says it's something more like 22 kids.
There's a couple of kids that may be coming in.
It's incoming for kindergarten. Kindergarten. 22.
Incoming kindergarten.
The next
What about
year.
what about incoming first graders?
Right now we have 16 kindergarten students. Would they all go to first grade? Will be 16 in first grade.
Okay, and that's what I've got here.
Mhm.
But I thought we saw another number last
There was
month.
2, I believe, that are coming into first grade.
If the number stays at 16 going into first grade, then we only need 1 teacher. And adding a student wouldn't be a problem. But when we get on the cusp where we have going into grade 3, 25 students.
Absolutely. You can't, at that point, we would be unable to accept that child.
Right. I mean,
But
but we're-
that's all part of the policy. What's going to happen tonight is we're looking at the figure, so what surrounds that and the terms and conditions that go into a child coming into this district, that has to be examined. And I think as part of whatever motion we craft, we'll be instructing, Dr. Powell and the attorney to.
I have the paperwork from Portsmouth. I have the policy, I have the letter that they give to the parents with the understanding of, the conditions under which the kids come into the district. And Portsmouth takes tuition kids in from some of the other schools, I'm guessing Middletown. Maybe Newport, I don't know that. But I'm laughing because I live in Newport, but I'm just saying that Middletown, and I know that they've taken tuition kids in, and when I inquired about this a couple of months ago, I spoke to somebody who had been an administrator in Portsmouth, who said to me, oh yeah, Portsmouth takes in tuition fees, and they have paperwork for that. And so I was able to get the paperwork for that. And so what I'm suggesting to you, and you've heard me say this since I got here, is I think this is a great school, and you've got some classes that have empty seats, that if you fill a couple of seats, it's not going to make a difference in a negative way to the system. It's going to make a positive impact, because you're going to pick up, some money on that, and you're going to have, these are parents that are interested in their kids' education, they're vested in that, they're probably parents who are either looking at us or looking at a private school, and they're looking at us saying, if I could go there, and one of the reasons they may come here is because their kids are friendly with some of the kids here in the community. They're looking to say, there's a peer group there also. So I mean, it's kind of like, I like it, it's like if I'm driving to Providence in my car, and somebody says, can I give you $10 to ride with you? I got to go there anyways. And if somebody says, another guy says, I can take $10, if I put 2 people in my car and I'm driving to Providence, and I now offset my cost, I'm going to pay my insurance anyways. I got to pay my gas anyways. I got to park there. I have to go there. There's no getting around it. But if I can have somebody offset that, and I think you're kind of in that situation. And the other nice thing about your school that's different than some of the other places, people want to come here. There's other places, I'm sure, and if you look at the commissioner's policies he's putting out there, he's talking about school choice. There's going to be people that if they get school choice, they're going to be leaving. It's not going to be people coming in, it's going to be people going out of some of the locations because they're unhappy. People, I think, would love to be here because you have a great program. And I think this is an opportunity for you to take a look at it. This is one person and see how that works. And my guess is you're going to get a couple more requests because people are going to want to come here. And it's not something, if it's a horrible thing and at the end of the year it doesn't work for people, then you can revisit that. But I think that you're in a very good situation. And I think, your tuition number in Portsmouth, I've said this before, that's the number that Portsmouth has for whatever reasons they have. I know there's other districts in the state that have their kids that go out, and those numbers are different than that. So, it varies from district to district.
I think we're comparing apples and oranges and some peaches now. I think we need to first look at our own teachers.
All we're doing tonight.
I understand, but what I'm saying is you can't look at one without, we need to look at all three together. So maybe we need to make this decision next month when we can look at all of the things that are going to go into combine the budget, the teachers, the numbers, and students wanting to come in. I don't think you can answer, talk about one without talking about the others, my opinion.
Do you have the figures for somebody to be coming with that high needs? So you know the exact cost of somebody with extreme high needs?
They wouldn't be allowed to come in. Their setting school would have to pay for any, we already have a policy in place.
Okay.
And it says that the student comes in and needs special education. We will be more than glad to service them, but their school district must pay for it, or they have to go back to their school district.
I mean, we don't have to make a decision tonight on any of this. I mean, it was just the cost is all we were going to consider tonight. And, perhaps maybe, I know these folks are waiting for us to give them an answer as to whether we'd be willing to do this. I mean, we have already voted, the committee had previously voted to allow the children to come in here. The ground rules weren't set, we don't have a policy. Yeah. I mean,
we have a policy.
Well, but in terms of some of the ground rules.
We don't have the formula for the charging of the students, if we were to accept them. And even in school choice, we don't have to accept them.
I'm bringing up school choice in the sense that seems to be the direction that people are trying to take a look at. I'm not saying it's ever going to get there, because it may never get there. I'm just saying that discussion's out there. But I think that there are districts already that do take tuition kids because of the districts that parents want their kids to go to, and they're willing to pay out of their pocket to have them go there, even though they can have their kids in a school that's free. They say, you know what, I understand that, but I would like to have my kid here, and I'm willing to pay to have my child in school because it's a desirable thing for a variety of reasons.
Yes, ma'am.
So did Dr. Bauer, did you or Mr. McEnany
with what you thought would be a
I-
reasonable?
I didn't run a formula. What I basically said in my head, which because it could go lots of different directions, I don't know, I didn't know Portsmouth ran a formula for our kids. My sense is that part of Portsmouth is, I don't know how they put their numbers together, but I'm going to guess that they competed against Middletown and said in their head, what can we do to make it attractive to bring little Compton kids to Portsmouth? And I'm sure Middletown was very sad to lose your kids. And I know that when I had my kids in Jamestown, and they went over to North Kingstown, Narragansett wanted those kids. And now Narragansett is getting some of those kids because the Jamestown School Committee has given the parents a choice between going to North Kingstown and to Narragansett. I don't know what the numbers are, but I know that I can't imagine that Narragansett didn't make it very attractive to gather up some of the Jamestown kids, because kids, you see how our kids do in Portsmouth. They're great students. That helps their scores. There's, you know, I think I told you the story about a guy in Tiverton. Said a lot of the kids get over to Portsmouth because he's a coach in Tiverton, and he said the two best players on this team are from Little Compton. I want them in Tiverton. I don't want them over at Portsmouth. You know, your kids are, you know, attractive. That's an attractive thing. You're in the same situation. You run a K-8 school that people want to be in, you know? So it's a nice problem to have.
Well,
And we're gonna run the class regardless.
The class is going to be there. There's going to be 16 kids, 17 kids. That's what you're going to
As
have
long
a
as
class.
we're not putting a student into a class that's gonna kick us into needing to spend money to have that student.
No, but that's not what we
In
do.
that case, we
No.
wouldn't do it. Then any amount that we would be getting that's a reasonable amount is a positive for the system.
Did you give a number? Did I miss it?
Did I give a number?
You didn't.
Why are you giving
I
that?
think 10,000. I think 10,000.
Hey, you do.
But if you're over it, you know, you're paying $9,500 Portsmouth, just picked up $500.
But you pay $9,500 on the capitalization, right? You have an agreement, a large amount of students, it's not a one-off.
Portsmouth would take one of your students, and they'd probably say, we'll be happy to take the $9,500 or 10, whatever it is, because they've got seats sitting there. If I can sell these 3 seats right there, because somebody says, can I come to this meeting tonight and I'll give you $5, I've got $15 because 3 people want to sit there and come to the meeting. I'll take the $15. You know, especially when we're struggling to try to balance a budget and we're saying to ourselves, you know, we've got this money, we've got that expense, or we're trying to buy a curriculum program. You know, that's found money.
well, in terms of where we end up tonight, we don't have to make a decision tonight, although I would say that we would need to certainly be able to come up with a decision in May. But just one request, we have a specific request on the table right now from a family who works in town but does not live here. So I think if we want, when we get down, we can postpone this particular item. We can work through the formula. I'm not quite certain that, you know, regardless of where that comes out, if it works out to be $15,000 per child, I'm not of the thought that, I think that that's too high, especially in lieu of the fact that we're paying $9,500. So what does it say if we're willing to charge someone $5,000 more than we're paying for the exact same 5,000? I said 15,000. 55.
Yeah. It's based on that.
It's going to be based on something. Well, the actual cost to us to add a child to a classroom doesn't cost us anything.
It doesn't cost you anything. Our cost for that child coming to the school is nothing. That doesn't cost us a
We
penny.
got the teachers, we got the administration.
You're there. That's what I'm saying to you. If I'm driving my car to Providence, you get in the back of my car. That doesn't cost me a penny because I got to go there anyways. And if you're paying me, I actually save some money.
Well, there is a cost. There's a cost to the other children that are sitting there, that now we're going to have one more child taking away time. I mean, you can also look at it that way, too.
We're talking about
Because there are all kinds of costs, I'm sorry.
Talking dollars.
You can speak that, it's fine.
You just get through saying those small class size, you're concerned about that. So you're saying that is a problem, because now these students are going to have one more student that's going to take up time and take up, so.
Oh, it
You
looks
see
like
what
I'm
I mean?
speaking out of both sides of my mouth.
Well, you know.
But I'm trying talking about with the numbers, when you turn around and look at the numbers, when you're looking at, if you look at any other school outside of New Compton, if you were to go teach in New Bedford, Fall River, Tiverton, Portsmouth, Middletown, Newport, you'll see one teacher teaches 5 or 6 subjects, at least 5 subjects, and has 25 kids. We have 2 teachers teaching 25. That's what I was talking about. When we talk about numbers.
We're getting off the topic.
Fine.
We're getting off the topic. We have a request from a parent that wants to send their child to school here. We need to be able to enumerate to them how much we want to charge them. And I would think that at this stage of the game, regardless of what the past vote is, I think we need to reaffirm our willingness to be able to do this, along with the cost. So, John, you want to make a comment? Go ahead.
Some of this, in the past, there's been almost a competition to get the students from Middle Compton to go to these schools because they had empty seats and they had teachers who didn't have enough children. And they could, that came into the cost of the UPAC. They could charge you less because they didn't have, they would have lost a teacher, they would have lost class size. Also, when the thing comes to busing, you say, you pay for the busing, but cut the cost of people down. There's all kinds of factors that come into it. What you get into, might get into in this school, such a small school, that when you can't take too many people in if you've got class sizes that are approaching the limit size. And you have to hire a third teacher for one grade, then you start getting the trouble.
No, I mean, I think those are decisions. I mean, historically, 25 kids in a grade, with the exception of what we did last year with the 8th grade, we've had that split in 12 and 13, especially in the lower grades. So it doesn't bear out historically that we're going to have 25 kids in one class, and then we're going to accept one child that's going to put us over the limit at 26 that requires us to hire another teacher.
No, you got to have space.
Well, yeah, you need to have space, but the condition that has been put on the table here as a potential problem hasn't existed. The potential for that problem to exist, that environment has not been existed here. First time was last year in the 8th grade class. And I think that there's ways that you can get around that too. As I remember Superintendent Crowell saying. But anyway, we'll get down to when we get down to the action item. Roger, go ahead.
Are there any legal risks to doing this?
I'm sure there are some things that need to be considered legally, and what my hope was today, if we were going to pass something with a number attached, we were going to direct the superintendent along with legal to sit down and make sure that everything that needs to be put on paper is there. Peg says we have a policy. I have not looked at the policy. I wasn't aware that we created a policy on that. I don't know how specific it is, but.
I think that one of the things that we really have to think about too is that as we go forward with this strategic planning committee, the thing that has consistently come to the top of the bucket is that we have a problem with enrollment. So we need to realistically address how we keep enough enrollment to keep our school a viable school. If we're going to consider keeping an enrollment going, we either have to send it out into the community to have more babies and get them out here quick, or we have to find a way to get students from outside into our school to keep it running. I think that the consensus in this town is that we want to keep a school. It helps our property values, it helps our children, we're giving a good education, and I think that there's no downside that provided we have the room, or we have the space within the classrooms, that we have a proper policy in place that bringing a child into a classroom that we're already running is a sensible and responsible move. That's how I'm seeing it.
$9 grand, sold, let's go.
we'll revisit this back now later on. Next discussion item.
92. I got 92 over here.
We had agenda requests submitted by Jan Porter for us to consider the no guns in schools resolution, which is in support of legislation that's currently in the General Assembly. Would you care to, do you want to stand and speak to any of that, or?
I'll be very brief.
No, that's fine.
You guys have most of it writing, and it's late. I'm a member of the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence, and they have rewritten and resubmitted 2 bills to the state legislature this year that did not get on the floor last year, but were very helpful they will this year, to prevent people with conceal and carry permits from bringing guns into schools. We already have laws on the books that prevent guns in schools, but make an exception for people who have conceal and carry permits. 39 states have passed this legislation quite some time ago. Rhode Island has not. So we are hoping that we will get every town on board this year to sign off on this. And for the first time, we're also going to the town councils. So I will go tomorrow night to the town council meeting and ask them to sign their own resolution. Happy to answer questions if you have.
One question that was posed to you by Ben, we were talking about the agenda today, was that he had asked if we had had any conversation with our police chief, which I have not. But in your letter, it states that Rhode Island law enforcement support these bills. Would that be a state?
You know, I did quite a bit of research trying to get the answer to that question, Tom, today, and I couldn't find it.
Okay.
My understanding from personal conversations with police officers is that they're completely on board with this. They don't want anybody in schools carrying weapons except themselves or retired police officers. I think that's a not to worry about issue.
Okay. And do you want to add anything, or comment on anything with regards to that? Do you think we should touch base with the chief before we make a decision on this, or?
I don't think it would hurt if you would, to get his perspective as a community.
All right. Would it be okay if we were to consider this at our next meeting? I mean, I'm certainly in support of it. I guess it might be worth it for us to just say, hey, look, this is what we're going to be considering. What's your thoughts? I think I know where he's going to fall on it, as
I'm sure you do. My concern in delaying it is that I think the town council vote on their resolution will then be delayed because they're going to want to know where you are.
All right. So you have they're scheduled to vote tomorrow night on this.
That would be my concern.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, the sooner we can get these bills out of the judicial committee and on the floor, the greater likelihood we have of passing them. And unfortunately, the vast majority of deaths that result from conceal and carry are not self-defense. So, although we'd like to think that, you know, if a teacher were packing a gun or somebody else in the school were packing a gun, they might be able to protect us. That's not the way it works. 16 out of 547 deaths last year with concealed and carry guns were deemed to be self-defense. The rest were not.
Anybody have any questions? Comments? Yes, sir.
What this group is trying to do with the national group, they've sent the same letter to every school department, every town council in the state of Rhode Island. They're trying to take away people's rights to suit their agenda. In the state of Rhode Island, there are 4,200 individuals, men and women, who have these concealed carry permits. The law has been there that allows them to go into schools now for over 100 years. There has never been an instance ever in in Rhode Island of one of these CC permit owners going into school and shooting them. Never. In addition, there's 13 million residents in the United States who have these same permits. And there has never been a case where they've gone and shot a school. Never. So what they're trying to do is prevent law-abiding citizens from doing something that the law already allows. They want to change the law, so we can't do it anymore. They can't have them anymore. I don't think there's anyone hardly ever walks in this school with a gun in their pocket. I own guns myself, but I worked for 25 years. I never brought a gun to school. And conceal it. Wait a second. One last point. I think I said probably enough.
It happens, John.
Yeah.
Just like that.
I'm a public speaker, but it's unreasonable for these people to say you can't do that. There's no reason for them to pass the law because no damage has ever happened. Why do you want to pass the law against law-abiding citizens? If these people get these permits, you don't just get a permit, you don't apply for it and say that's it. These permits take a lot of work to get. First of all, have to go to a background check that every gun owner has to go through. But then you have to apply for the permit from the police chiefs. Many of them don't even issue the background.
I know.
And you have your personal background is checked, not very, a lot of oversight. In many cases, people who qualify have not been given permits. Police chiefs have gone to, people have gone to court and sued the police department just so they get a permit. But there's no reason for this in the first place because there's never been any damage.
I actually have to differ with that. There have been cases of teachers, not in Little Compton, not in Rhode Island, carrying concealed weapons in the hopes of protecting themselves and their children who have accidentally shot themselves. In the foot, in the hand. That's happened on at least 2 occasions that I know about. The second thing I'd like to say is that the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence is not against guns. In fact, the head of the organization is a gun owner. It's against gun violence. The third thing I'd like to say is the fact that it hasn't happened. Are we going to wait until it does and then pass the law? I hope not.
No grandmother ever went to a school with a butcher like to throw in the meat. Ban
training and handguns. And all of a sudden there is a problem and they start blasting without using the front sight or without at a state of panic, and there's going to be more problems than you started with. I just think it's a very dangerous precedent. And the school board has prohibited this before. And I see no reason to stop.
The law does not allow a teacher to bring a gun into school without training, without passing background check, etc.
Did you ever hear him, Roger?
Yeah, just to quote the NRA, the only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. So if a bad guy with a gun gets in here and there's no defense because we chose not to have any guns, I don't think that's going to end very well either.
Oh, God. John, may I say, I never thought you and I would agree on anything. We agree on this. See your crows. The idea that many states are harming their teachers and training their teachers is a sad commentary is that we're trying to have to vote on not bringing. We already have a law that guns are not allowed in school. So why to emphasize that law again? It may not be, but as somebody who is not afraid of guns and knowing that the state of Rhode Island, to get a gun permit in the state of Rhode Island, and the ability you have to use, you just don't go through a background check, you just don't sign off. You have to you have to score a certain amount at a gun range. It has to be approved. So we have in Rhode Island, we're very strict. Go next door to Massachusetts, that's not the case. So I'm not really in favor of issuing any more laws. I think we're overlord at this point. But thank you, John, I have to appreciate your comment.
I've talked to the police chief about this on multiple times, many times, okay, and actually the former chief as well. And it's a difficult thing because I also shoot all the time. There are a couple of things that happen when you make a law like this. One of them, it becomes 500 feet from a school, okay? That means you can't just drive down the road. You can't. There's like almost nowhere on the commons that you can be with a gun. Wilbur store maybe, but you couldn't go anywhere down Pike Street. It would be illegal. So that's something worth considering. The other thing is when you put the no gun sticker on your door, you become a target. I mean, in Colorado, that gentleman who went to Batman drove by 2 movie theaters that allowed guns to go to the one that banned them. But I also don't think we need guns in the school. The police chiefs and I had always thought that if we had a, what do they call it in Portsmouth? Officer Sullivan? Yeah, a resource officer, right. Or, and he said, oh, we can't afford it, it's not in the budget, it's expensive, it takes 6 months or whatever. But even just opening the door to the police to come in and have lunch with the kids or spend some time in the front hallway, even if it were 1 or 2 days, it was random so they had a presence here, would make a huge difference. And I think that is better than arming teachers or janitors or Joe Public to come in. And the only thing is I don't want to lose my right to drive by. I'm going to have to go Swamp Road to get out of town, so just consider that. Thanks.
Anybody else?
This whole thing has nothing to do with arming, giving every teacher at the school. This is something altogether different. This is taking the rights away from a limited number of people who have them right now, who are law-abiding citizens. I belong to a shooting club which is about 700 members, and very few of them have carry permits. Very few. It's a very limited number of people. It's not every teacher on the block, every teacher in the classroom, every teacher in the school. Very limited number of people that have the right now to do that. They want to take it out.
I just want to clarify that there would be no stickers on doors or gun-free signs. I also want to clarify that under current state law, guns are not allowed in government buildings, in airports, probably in the town hall, but they are allowed in schools. So just to put it in some context.
Wow.
You all did sign this last year. I don't know what the difference is this year, but.
Anybody else have any comments?
I think you're on 10.3 wellness.
Yes.
There you go. Staff wellness.
Yeah, staff wellness
Staff
program.
wellness program.
10.3. Couldn't find myself.
There you are.
Starting to feel.
Who made the request for the staff wellness program?
Oh, I did?
This is the program.
Well, surprise.
If you're not, we don't have to get into it, we can table it.
We'll table it.
I think that, I thought that we had a discussion, they wouldn't be aware of it.
Okay.
This is a discussion, and this wasn't to be voted on.
Yeah.
It looks like there's a vote coming up next on this
We'll place on it to be voted on too.
program, and I'm not really certain that, I thought we were in the, I apologize, but I thought we were in the talking phase, because I had learned that the trust offers wellness programs. And I figured that if they offered something for free, we should check into it. So Mrs. Sedgwick and I had a representative come and give us the kinds of programs that they offer. Along with that, they had a survey that we would administer to, another survey, but just to say, what would you be interested in if, whatever. So I think that
we were just sort of now in the talking phase of whether or not this, did the survey go out?
No,
Okay.
but we discussed setting up a survey because the town is also doing it, and we thought, oh, we can like collaborate with the town on it. And we wanted to make the school committee aware that this is a program that our staff can be partnering with the town.
So they offer lots of different programs. The things that we were interested in were, they might come and do exercise classes, they might do other sort of nutrition type things. These would all be after school, whatever.
Yeah,
They-
we've talked to other organizations, EVAC does it for their staff, and I've talked to Lisa Ladder about it, they do that, and it's been very well received by staff.
So, like I said, if it's something that's a benefit of something that we already have from the trust, what I wanted to do was look in to see what they offered. So I guess that's what it is, that we have now looked in to see what they offer, and just so that you're aware that perhaps we might entertain tapping into that.
So this isn't something we don't need to vote on?
I don't think so, I just think it's a FYI.
Okay. Well, as it plays out a little bit more, maybe you can keep us updated.
So you can come to Zumba or Pilates or whatever.
If you have massages, I'll come.
All right, thank you, Jean. Moving into the action items, consider a vote on setting tuition for out-of-district student agreements.
I would like to make a motion.
Well, can I make a suggestion?
Oh, absolutely.
First, before, I don't know what your motion is, maybe you're thinking alike, but I would think that, given the information that Polly has, rather than us making the decision on a let's try to put some rhyme and reason behind it. I had it in my head that maybe the Portsmouth tuition might have been a good way to go. I know you're all talking over there, and we're doing some math.
We were like figuring
Figuring it away.
No, I think it's more than we can do right here,
Yeah.
but my thought process was that it should be considerably less than what our per pupil is, because we're still paying for Dr. Power, we're still paying for Mr. Ruda, whether we have one, we're still paying, but there's still a lot of things we're paying for, and we should make it affordable, was my whole thought process. Although I don't know if we should throw out just a random number without some logic behind it, and some plan, so that going forward, we can follow that logic.
Okay. I agree. So why don't we, right now, we'll vote to table, accept the motion to table the discussion, or table considering and voting on setting the tuition. And let's have Dr. Powell, along with Ben and John, put some rhyme and reason to it.
May I just, we have discussion?
Well, I'm entertaining a motion
Okay,
to basically to table
I'll
this for
second.
now.
I'll second.
You have to make a motion first.
Yeah. You want to make a motion?
I'll make, yeah, you want to make the motion?
All right, you make the motion,
I'll make a motion that we
Table this.
table the discussion. However, we will, in the motion, instruct Dr. Power to go forward with putting together the necessary numbers that we can examine. And further, that we instruct Dr. Power to let the party that is applying to us know that we will be addressing this at the next meeting.
All right, I'll second it.
Discussion.
Will we make a second vote to allow the parent to consider bringing their child, providing that they are in agreement with the tuition that we come up with? So in other words, you want to say, okay, your child can come, but we're going to come up with a figure, and if that figure is good, then okay, you can come. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I don't think we need to vote to say yes. I mean, we're supposed to vote the tuition.
Okay, all right.
So
I didn't know we had to
I
say.
think Bob can say, look, we talked about it, I mean, even though we're not voting, I have no issue with it. I don't think as a committee we have any issue with it, but there's some things that have to be worked out. I think we need more information. before we can just set a number to it.
I think, if I real quickly, that we obviously need a formula and some reason for the number. And if we have a policy that's on the books, that needs to be revised. It's going to be revised.
At least we discussed it at a minimum.
So, I don't know if you need to include that on your motion,
No.
but that needs to be revised, because it's not going to be $17,000.
Dr. Power, are you all right with that?
Yeah. I'm sure we can. I've never heard this before. This is new information. I'm sure John and I can figure out how they figured it out. We'll make a phone call.
We'll get the formula, yeah.
I have to say though, my gut tells me that part of that formula is we're going to underbid the other guy. I just think it's I'm just saying that I think they were like, if we could take those kids from Middletown and bring them to Portsmouth, that would be a nice day for us. I know that if I was the Portsmouth superintendent, that's exactly what I'd be telling the Portsmouth school committee, just like I'm telling you. If you have an opportunity to bring some kids in, and it's not going to upset your ratios, and it's not requiring you to spend any money, I would tell you to take a look at that.
Mr. Chair, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
So the commissioner in his recent speech to the General Assembly has an policy empowerment statute. And part of that is going to be the right to transfer into the district, that has amounts in it that a school district would be credited. And perhaps we could look at that, if we can look at a general rule going forward, as a pretty good indicator of what you should charge, because ultimately, even if you pass a policy or make a monetary policy, that statute's going to override it in terms of the cost per pupil. And that might be a good indicator. Now, that doesn't apply to the specific case you have right now, because as I understand it, those parents are from out of state. Right. So that's a different situation. But as far as kids in Rhode Island, that statute may give us a lot of, in a short time, if it passes, they give us a lot of information as to exactly how much to charge.
These
And
parents
how
right
to charge
now,
might be out of our hands.
these parents are going to make a decision shortly, because they're
Yeah.
going to either come here, so they're going to put a down payment in private school.
This is my point, was don't be concerned right now about a general rule for the future, be concerned about the specific case, and then going forward, you may want to look at the statute for guidance for a general rule if you want to do so.
So if I understand, then maybe we can go for a number here, so we don't lose a student.
Well,
And we don't, because we don't have to worry, like I
It's
said.
important to the committee, I think you can now.
I mean, do we have a motion on the floor?
We do.
So, yeah,
Like,
but-
But I would suggest, why don't you let the superintendent throw a number out that he thinks is appropriate for this one circumstance, for this 1 year, and then move forward after, see if the statute's passed. Look at the statute, even if it's not passed, and see if that gives you a fair formula to move forward.
No, I agree.
like I said to you before, my $10,000 figure was based on the fact that we're paying $9,500 to go to Portsmouth for our kids. I put a little premium on top of that. I rounded up. I didn't round it down. That's what I did. But I didn't just dream that number up.
No, I understand.
I said, that's what we're doing. And, somebody did make the point that at some point, if people start getting competitive, it's going to be interesting to see what other districts do.
So, under, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Patrick.
No, I mean, we're discussing it right now. I would ask Lori to withdraw her motion. I think we should put a number on it so we don't lose the student. And like Mrs. Scungio said, I think that was great advice. We have plenty of time to craft what we need to craft. What are we saying to these people? We're going to wait longer?
Well,
No, we said that they could come.
it's just a measure of us putting it off until we can get them terms and conditions, relook at the policy again, and move forward. I mean, I don't know what happens if somebody calls up and wants someone else to come in. Are we going to, if we're going to offer to one, we got to offer to the other.
You answer
I think
that question.
you're on a case-by-case basis, because you're gonna pick grade levels, what you've got for, how many kids you've got in the program, how much you don't want to exceed. And like I said, I have Portsmouth's paperwork. I have all that paperwork already. So I know what the stipulations they had in there, and how they crafted that. And I know that they had somebody write that up. They didn't write that on their own. They probably used their own attorney to do that. Are you their attorney? Mary Ann. Well, his office wrote the paperwork that I had. It said Portsmouth that. I changed it a little Compton. That'll save us a lot of money.
Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion.
Let me review it one time.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Pardon?
How about if you make it just for 1 year limit? That gives you time to decide whether you've done the right thing or the wrong thing without having someone. I've told this story before, but my daughter had worked in Westport schools and Massachusetts schools. And when those schools were taking children, they stopped doing it because the children, parents were bringing in children because of HIPAA laws. They don't have to tell you how that child, the condition of that child. And once the school system accepts the child, they own the child for good. And if they don't take care of the kid can then apply for a school that does take care of it. And the town has to pay that other school. The town that took the child has to pay another town to take care of that child in the future. So you've got to.
In our policy, we took care of that.
Yeah, I remember you said we did.
Yeah, we took care of that.
It's one thing you want to be careful.
Yeah.
There wasn't change probably since your daughter went to school. Now there is pretty easy transferability of those educational records.
Interstate?
Yeah.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to consider and vote setting tuition at $10,000 for this out-of-state student from Westport.
I will second.
Any more discussion?
The only hesitation I have with that is that if we get somebody next week saying they want to come in, are we going to go through this again?
Yes, and do a case-by-case basis.
Well, I think.
No, once we set the figure, we have the figure for the year.
But accepting the kids,
You would decide that.
You can take them on a case-by-case basis, accepting the kids. I mean, like I said, the guidelines, and it's clear when you look at the Portsmouth stuff, but they're not taking in kids that are going to cost that money. If there's an issue with class size, like you see, this next kid would trigger hiring a teacher, they're not taking those kids. That's not.
I don't see any of us, if we get another child next week, I don't see us sending the tuition to $12,000.
No.
So
why not set it at 10,000 for this year coming? That's where I'm saying.
Can I just ask, what is the Montessori school up the road charge? Anyone know?
She just left, you just missed her.
all right, we have a motion and a second on the table. Any more discussion?
I would ask that the motion reflect that we set it at 10,000 for the upcoming year.
Can I get Mrs. Scoggio's, is there any drawback to adding that to the motion?
Honestly, I think you're better off just doing it right now, and then if you want to set it next month after you have a little more data.
So in this case, just set it for this particular
Because you
student.
need to act now to inform this family and let them decide if they can come. Then you can certainly use that as an indicator, but get more data and a recommendation from your superintendent for next month, and then act on it.
Well then, how about wording it more like, because what if we set the number at a lower amount? Would we offer that to this particular family?
You can decide that.
Or you could say something not to exceed 10,000.
Not to exceed $10,000.
If you want to do it less, that'd be fine. But they need to know.
It indicates that it's negotiable, I would think. I think $10,000 is good. I mean, it's slightly above what we're paying Portsmouth. If you want to pull it back and you want to go with the Portsmouth number, I don't have a problem with that either. But $10,000, I think, is a good number. Motion second on the floor. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm opposed. I think we should be doing the work first before throwing out a number that we just thrown out. So I'm opposed.
All right. Motion carries 4-1 with Mr. Bugera against. All right. Consider and vote on House and Senate resolution for no guns in schools.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 11.2, consider and vote, consider the Senate resolution on no guns in school.
I'll second.
Discussion. Is this the exact same resolution we passed with the concealed?
I don't know word for word it is, but
This resolution deals specifically, okay.
the resolution supports the laws.
I think it's the same, exactly.
Any, we have a motion second on the floor, any discussion?
Well, it concerns me that it would stop people like Jeremy from driving by the school.
Doesn't bother me in the least.
You guys don't make the, you guys don't make the law.
No, I know, there are none, I know, because it's up to the judgment of the police chief whether he wants to issue.
Can we just not put the sticker on the door? She already said there wasn't going to be a sticker on the door. Just don't put the sticker on the door. I would draw any ends.
This school is controlled by guns.
Right.
Motion made second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 3-2. We've already done 11.3. Consider and vote to accept revision to substitute staff procedures section of personnel management system policy. I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consider and vote on sea perch trip to Louisiana. Before you make a motion. I wish we actually probably should consider this earlier, because I would have. What's the total cost
Per student?
Well, per person, it was 9.
How many people are gonna go?
How many people are going?
There's 5 students and 926.
Five students?
There's 2 students, the director and 2 parents.
All right.
It's 5 people,
5,000.
926.
Right. We can talk about it before we.
I'd like to make a motion
All right, go ahead.
that we approve the field trip and approve any amount that is not collected through, approve out of our,
The balance between what
Yes.
they're raising and what
correct,
what the cost is.
yes, approve that we pay the amount that they don't raise.
So that
Right now,
amount,
they're at about, they've raised, to this point, they've raised about 35,000.
so
It's
it's
about 5,000.
It's
5
about
people,
5,000 right now.
5 people at 926 is 4,630.
Just round up to 5.
And it may be about 100 more than that, because they need to transfer to get from the airport to the school and back, and that adds about 200 to the bill. So total, it's going to be about 4,700, give or take a few dollars.
All right, so motion's made to approve their trip, and allow
And
it.
to supplement to the amount that they need to go on the trip, after they have finished with their fundraising efforts, any shortfall in their account.
So moved.
Motion made the motion, you want a second?
I'm sorry, second.
Can I make a comment?
Discussion.
If you have 5 people going, it's an in-school program, you have a staff member going. I think the school committee should fund the staff. You run the program here in the school, you're sending them on this trip, the staff member is part of your building, they should be funded by you. That's my opinion.
I agree, and the only reason that I'm not saying that is that they're taking a lot of pride in the fundraising.
I totally agree.
And they're already almost at the amount. So I'm just saying, I don't think that as
If they raise
raise
enough
it,
money to send all of them,
right.
you know, I mean,
They're taking a lot of pride in the amount that they're raising.
I'm
So
not
wanna
disagreeing with that, but I
limit
just
and
think
say-
it's an in-school program, it's a program that you've sanctioned, it's during school hours, it's not after school hours, and you have a staff member that's teaching. And I just feel that that's showing that you're really supporting that program.
Well, that's what we're doing by
Yeah.
making them.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, but I also
We're gonna
think-
make up the difference. If the difference is
Which is sit
2,000,
at my couch.
we're making up the
What
2,000.
if there's no difference, and next year you run into the same problem? Maybe that $1,000 can roll over to a fund for that for next year. It's already there. You know, and we're saying if they're in that, it could be any other program that you're offering.
We
here at the school.
have, we do have money in reserve.
I'm just-
Yep.
Motion made second. Any Any more discussion?
Yeah, I just have, I would agree with my favorite gym teacher of all time.
The only one you had.
I had other gym teachers, And there's two students going, and there's one teacher. 926 times 3 is $2,778. I think Lori should amend her motion, if she would, to $2,778. And whatever that these wonderful people have donated and collected, and the $2,778 that goes over, we put in a reserve fund that Mr. McNamee whispered in my ear for the next seed perch.
All right, we have a motion. We have a motion to table. Any second? Any more discussion as it pertains to that motion?
I'd like to hear the motion again.
Motion to approve the trip for the two students.
Yeah.
Any amount that is not collected through fundraising. And to supplement
We're going to
it.
supplement, we're going to make up the shortfall from what they need to raise versus what they're going to raise. Understand?
Yeah, I did.
All right.
Thinking
Any
about
more
it.
discussion?
Can I just say something? Sure. The only thing that I find it to be just a little bit unfair is within these $926 that are earmarked for every single one of the students or the participants, there is a registration fee attached for them to participate, and we do pay for every single one of our programs that go out. We do pay the registration fees. So I just want to make that known.
And we didn't pay it this time, that's part of the
That's part of the $926. And not totally, neither does Kelly yet, because that was part of the lodging together with registration and transportation.
So again, under discussion, I would ask Lori to withdraw
I
and
think she needs to withdraw a motion because the motion became made.
amend the motion that this school committee pays for the two students and the teacher at 926 times 3, which is $2,778. And anything that goes over that they've collected goes into a.
I'm not going to amend my motion. That's the motion. I want my motion to I think that, because they are taking so much pride in the fundraising that they're doing, I would gladly give them the full amount if they didn't raise anything, in my opinion.
But they're raising it.
But they're raising it, and they are taking a lot of pride, and they're out there and.
Yeah, I'm not disputing pride at all, so it doesn't need to be mentioned.
All right, I think I'll move the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Molly? Aye, so motion carries 4-1. Mr. McHugh disagreed. Consider a vote on staff wellness program. I'll make
I make a motion that we table this discussion, this.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Public input? None.
I
Oh,
got 9.5.
9.5, excuse me.
Not acknowledging me.
I'm sorry. I had my head down.
I guess think I'm like you.
What are you going to do? We're going to talk about the regular, we're not on public input yet.
Oh, I thought you said public.
I did.
I'm very sorry.
I did, but we moved the superintendent search down.
Okay.
It's a very, very brief report. Very brief,
Okay.
promise.
That's okay, she really my audience is gone.
All left.
We have 6 minutes before we vote.
All right. 9.5, superintendent search subcommittee.
Yes, my report is that we have had 2 meetings. We have received, at this point, 8 applications, and we are in the process of evaluating. We are going to be meeting again on Monday this coming week, and then again possibly on Wednesday this coming week, and I fully anticipate that we will be recommending 3 candidates to the school committee by the end of next week, barring any unforeseen obstacles. That's my report.
All right, is the expectation going to be that we're going to meet the meeting after? You guys conclude this?
That's that.
I mean, is it necessary that we do that, or can this be able?
I think that we're going to need to set up interviews
Yeah.
and whatnot. So I think that that's something that we're going to need to discuss. We want to discuss it now, but I think that we would want to get going with interviews and process.
Okay. So we'll probably end up having a special meeting for that. All right, will you all conclude your process and
Yes.
we convene a meeting, a special meeting to
When we
make
are
a presentation?
concluded, I will make sure that I contact the chair and let him know, and we'll move forward.
All right. Very good, thank you. Public input.
There's no public. I know. I have a question for you, Tom. Since truly my public input was to address parents who had concerns that we, as the school faculty, what we were doing to address some of those students who are gifted, if not just, those that, sometimes do not seem to get our attention as well as some of the other students in our classroom. I really was wondering if perhaps I might wait, would it be okay if at the next meeting, and parents were here.
No, I'm sorry, but
Is it something I cannot address again? So I'm
No,
wondering if I
we can talk.
bring that issue up at like the next meeting and say, at our last meeting, some
Yeah.
parents had concerns about how the school and faculty may be addressing some of their students. And I wanted them to know that, our school has produced lawyers and doctors, nurse practitioners. Our school has produced West Point graduates, that we have students, like I have a list. That's what took me so long. I couldn't speak up after Mr. Aruda because I was making my list of all the different students that have passed through over the years, certainly businessmen who are successful in our town. So if I can address that and let them know that they should be assured that we are a school of progression, that our school, that's what education is, and our school is that. Our school is progressing both in faculty and students. So if I can do that next time.
Sure.
So that, okay. Should I have it on the agenda, suggest John? So that I'm sure I can address it. Or it can be public input. I just want to assure
Yeah, I mean,
that
obviously, the public input, non-agenda items, what you're saying can be brought to any meeting. But we'll try to make it so it's not at the very end.
Okay. So, as every parent was leaving, I was like, no.
I'm sorry.
Don't forget you got to be there. I will be there. So thank you very much.
No, only that, the agenda for these meetings.
All right.
Well, I didn't think, because I did not think that this meeting was going to take nearly as long as it did. Well, that's one thing we're going to talk about.
I make a motion to adjourn.